Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto meets Anko, who forever changed his life, armed with the snake contract and the ultimate chakra blade. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends, and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Midarashi Anko was a jounin, one of the best. She was known for cruelty and brutality when dealing with an enemy. When not in battle, she was a happy-go-lucky girl with a taste for blood, because she refused to let people in. No one ever saw beyond that. But deep inside she was hurting. It all started with her former master Orochimaru. He had left the village in search of power, and in doing so he betrayed and abandoned Anko. The villagers hated her merely for being his apprentice. They began to glare at her and spit at her feet whenever they saw her. Only the Hokage showed her any respect, but the times when she saw him were few, far and in between. In other words, she was on her own and world out to get her. There were, however, a few people willing to interact with her, those being her fellow jounin. Out of all those colleagues, there were only 3 that she would call friendly. Sarutobi Asuma, Yuhi Kurinai, and Hikate Kakashi were the teachers of the Rookie 9, and the only ones willing to speak with her outside of missions. They would get together every once in a while for a drink or two, but that was it. Though they didn't outright hate her, and for that she was thankful. There were only 2 places where she could seek her solace: outside the city walls or in the forest of death. The latter was the more commonplace. It seemed like almost every day she went in to escape the hatred the villagers piled on her. There were no emotions here, only survival. In this forest she was free. When she came here, she would make her way to the tower in the center. On the way there, she would take out her frustration on any living thing she came across. After she had worked out her anger, she would enter the tower. It was here, after she was sure that she was alone, that her mask would crack. Once that happened, the tears started to pour, and she would cry herself into exhaustion. She would leave the forest in the morning, only to return every night and repeat the same thing as before. This night, however, was a different story. Tonight she did not enter the forest alone. She had followed someone in. Someone with bright yellow hair and an ugly orange jumpsuit. She knew that this was the dead last that Kakashi was always talking about, Uzumaki Naruto. The speed and grace he moved with, though, told another story. She trailed him all the way to the tower and jumped to a window. Looking in, she saw him look around before he glowed red. He concentrated the chakra that was surrounding him into his right arm. Then he swung around in a circle, letting the energy coat the walls. While he was doing this, Anko caught a glimpse of his face. It was a face she knew all too well, for she wore it every night. It was the face of a broken soul. Though his face told much, his eyes said the most. Pain, a lifetime of pain, was visible. It was then that he took off his jacket and revealed a ratty white t-shirt. Before he knelt down, she caught a glimpse of a kunai in his hand. She saw a little movement before he became still once again. The next thing she saw was small pool form around him. It took a few seconds to realize what was, before it came to her. Blood. He was trying to kill himself. She didn't think, she just reacted, and began to bash on the window. But the window was as hard as a rock. It would appear that the red chakra had formed a barrier around the room. So she began to bombard it with jutsu. After 4 continuous minutes, the window finally shattered, and she jumped in. The boy had already lost consciousness. His skin was an unnatural pale, and you could clearly see that he was near death. 2 perfect slashes adorned each wrist. Those cuts brought back unpleasant memories before she buried them once again. Reaching into her pack, she took out 2 pills and forced them down his throat. One was a soldier pill, and the other a blood pill. Then, using what little medical knowledge she had, she began to close the cuts. It was a good 5 minutes before the cuts were completely healed. They were now angry red scars. By this time the pills had gotten to work. His color had returned to normal, and his breathing had deepened and evened out. Now it was only a matter of waiting for him to wake up. So she dragged him down to the cots on the next floor. After she placed him on the bed, she sat herself in a chair and waited. 3 hours later. When Naruto awoke, he found that he had a splitting headache. When the pain had subsided enough, he opened his eyes and found a white room. There were a few beds, but nothing more. Had he succeeded? Was he dead? He swung his legs over the side of the bed and shakily stood up. "Finally awake, are you?" said a voice from behind him. When he turned around, he found the most beautiful sight he had ever seen. A woman with purple hair done up in a pineapple. She wore a fishnet bodysuit, a miniskirt, and a trench coat. Now he knew he had succeeded. He let out a laugh, then another and another. They kept growing in volume as a smile spread out on his face. His laugh stopped as he let out a contented sigh. "I did it. I'm dead." "No, you're not." "What?" You're not dead. Now Naruto was confused. This was just like he imagined heaven would be. How could he not be dead? You're wrong, I am dead. I woke up in a white room, and now I'm talking to an angel. I have to be dead. He saw a blush growing on her cheeks. Why would she be blushing? I only called her what she is, right? Anko, on the other hand, was shocked, embarrassed, and flattered all at once. An angel? Her? It just didn't seem possible after all those years of hatred. But the kid was still in denial, and she had to set him straight. So she did the natural thing, walked over, and slapped him. Oh. What the hell was that for? That hurt, you know. It was supposed to hurt. You are not dead. I brought you here after I healed you. Naruto, who had turned to the side after the slap, turned his face to her. Then in a frigid, cold voice he said, "What did you say?" Suppressing her shiver at the voice, she replied, "I said I healed you after I figured out what you were trying to do." He turned his face from her once again. She was getting nervous now. The boy practically screamed danger. She didn't get much further in her thoughts before he turned around and backhanded her, hard. After she had landed on the floor, she heard him yell, "Why the fuck would you do that? I wanted to die. What right did you have to interfere?" His voice began to break. "Why did you save me? All I wanted was to die in peace. Can I not be granted that one thing?" It was then that all of his defenses broke down, and he fell to his knees, sobbing. He was only there for a second before Anko, in a moment of uncharacteristic tenderness, came over and wrapped him in a hug. Naruto grabbed onto her like she was his last lifeline, before burying his face into the crook of her neck, and sobbed. He cried out 12 years of pain and suffering. He cried for himself, and for the Yondaime, who died to save the village and seal the fox. He cried for the old man, who had to retake the seat of Hokage at his age. He cried for Irika, who had almost died to save him. He cried for Zabuza, and for Haku, both of whom died for their ideals. And finally, he cried for the woman who held him. A woman who had seen fit to save him even when he didn't want to be saved. Finally, when all his tears were spent, he looked up at the woman who he had thought to be an angel, and asked, "Why did you save me?" She looked at him before answering, I didn't really think about it at the time. I just kind of reacted. Looking back at you though, I see a lot of myself in you." She held out her wrists, and if you looked close enough you could see a scar just like Naruto's on each of them. He looked at her with none too little shock in his eyes. You tried it too?" She nodded at him. "Once, years ago, when my mentor first defected from Konoha. He just left and abandoned me like yesterday's trash. I'm sorry. I didn't want to make you sad." She waved her hand dismissively. No, she sighed, "I'm over it now. It's the past." He nodded. "Can I ask you something?" What? Well, I kind of wanted to know. Why did you do it?" "Well, when Orochimaru became a missing nin, the village felt betrayed. They eventually turned that anger onto me. That hatred along with his betrayal was too much." She gained a pained look on her face, and Naruto hugged her just a little bit tighter. "Luckily Hokage-sama stopped me before I died, kind of like with us. Although we didn't end up in this position." Indeed, they were in a position. Anko was sitting on the ground with Naruto in her lap. They had their arms around each other, and Naruto's head was on her shoulder. One might say they were getting comfy. A bit of a blush made its way to his cheeks before he fought it down. "So, kid? Yeah? Why did you do it?" He was silent for a bit while trying to find the right words. "Well, the villagers have always hated me. They only saw the Kyuubi." Seeing the confusion on her face, he answered the unspoken question. "Mizuki told me about him when he betrayed the village." She seemed to accept that, so he continued. "The only one who actually cared for me was the old man, but he was always busy running the village. The only other beside him was Irika-sensei, and now you. So hatred was as common as breathing. I was the dobe of the academy, nobody respected me. I was placed on a team with a sensei who ignores me, one teammate who doesn't care about me, and another that outright hates me. But it was this afternoon that really sealed the deal." Flashback. Naruto was walking toward their team's usual meeting spot. When he got there, he greeted his teammates with an overly loud voice. "Ohio, Sakura-chan. Sasuke team." He was greeted with Sakura's fist as she shouted at him. "Shut up, Naruto. And don't talk to Sasuke like that." Sasuke meanwhile just muttered a dobe. Once again Naruto was nursing a wound from Sakura while she fawned over the Uchiha. After waiting for 3 hours for their sensei to show up, and after another lame excuse with 2 shouts of "liar," Team 7 began training. It went like this. Sasuke sparred with Kakashi, Sakura fawned over him, and Naruto was ignored. While Sasuke was getting beaten, Naruto walked behind Sakura and said, "Looks like Sasuke's going to lose." He got another fist in the head while she said to him, "Shut up, Naruto. Sasuke is way better than you. You're just a dobe, and that's all you'll ever be. No one would even care if you died." She put her hand over her mouth after that last sentence. Naruto began to walk away after that. When Sakura started shouting for him to wait, he ran. No one even saw the tears in his eyes. End flashback. I ran to the top of the Hokage monument. I thought over my life, and made my decision. I went to the forest of death after dusk, and you know the rest. Anko simply increased her hold on him. They sat there for a few minutes before Anko brought up something that was bothering her. "Hey kid, you say you were the dobe of the academy, but you move with the grace of a chunin at least." Yeah, I got that from the Kyuubi. The old man said something about merging or something, and that it had to do with the seal. I've already started to move like him, and his knowledge is beginning to trickle into my head when I sleep. Now that was some shocking news. She must have shown it because Naruto asked, "Is that okay? Do you hate me now?" "No, I don't hate you. I was just shocked is all. I mean to find out that you will have the power, and knowledge of the most powerful tailed beast is big information, you know?" He nodded, and tried, very unsuccessfully, to hide a yawn. This made Anko give a little smirk. "Let's get some sleep. It is the middle of the night, you know." Okay. Where am I gonna sleep?" Anko got a mischievous smirk on her face after he said that. "Right here, ding dong." He was now blushing so red he looked like a volcano ready to burst. Here, W with you?" She nodded. "On the F floor, together?" "Is there a problem with that?" "I won't bite, you know." He only blushed harder. "Look, all we're gonna do is sleep." That eased his blush down somewhat. "Anyway, I get this weird feeling when I'm with you. It's like everything is right in the world, like I'm complete?" he offered, knowing just what she was talking about. She nodded. "Yeah, that's it, complete. Now," she said, grabbing a pillow from the nearest bed, "go to sleep." Naruto snuggled close to her, but he needed to know something. "Anko?" He got a murmur of consent. "What's gonna happen tomorrow?" He heard her sigh. "Well, I was thinking, if you agreed, that I would take you on as my apprentice." She opened her eyes and looked into his. They openly showed his hope that she would. "Why you do that?" His voice was hesitant and cautious. "Yes, I would. You've got a lot of potential, kid, and I like you." She then found herself on the receiving end of the biggest hug in the world. "Thank you? Thank you?" yelled Naruto with gratitude, tears briefly appearing at the corner of his cerulean blue eyes. "You're welcome, kid. Now get to sleep. We're gonna need all of our strength if we're gonna argue with Kakashi and Hokage-sama tomorrow." "You're right. The old man can put up a hell of a fight," agreed the fox container, smiling at the thought of getting a proper education now in the ninja arts. Kakashi just ignored him and focused his attention on the cool-acting Uchiha. She gave a snort, and said that he can. That he can, he's a determined old sot. By that's probably why he's still clinging to the title of Hokage. He should just give someone else the title. "Yeah, like me," announced Naruto, giving Anko his trademark foxy grin. However, this one had some warmth in it, unlike his mask that he wore among most people to protect what's left of his sanity and innocence. That, and it pissed off the villagers to no end. "Night, Anko-chan." Grunting softly, Anko began to awaken. She found that she was lying on something. A kicking something. It was then that the memories of last night came back full force. Saving the kid, talking to him, asking him to become her apprentice, falling asleep with him. Kick. She felt a vein growing on her forehead. This was not how she had wanted to be woken up, that little punk. Kick. The vein grew in size quite dramatically. When she opened her mouth to yell at him, though, he mumbled something that sounded like, "Come here, little rabbit-chan. Come on, come to Kyuubi. That's a good little morsel." After that his voice turned into a mumble while Anko struggled to hold in her laughter, and failing miserably. A rabbit? That's what he was dreaming about. Apparently he had heard her because a second later he lazily opened his eyes and looked at her. They had switched positions during the course of the night. He was on the floor now, with her draped over him. She was very warm, and her presence was calming. When he locked gazes with her, her smile turned into a smirk. "So, who's Rabbit-chan?" That made him go beet red with embarrassment. Why did he have to get Kyuubi's memories starting from the beginning of his life? Why couldn't he just take the useful stuff and leave it at that? But no, He just had to keep dreaming about chasing rabbits as Kyubi did all throughout his childhood. Once he got his embarrassment under control, he answered her. You know how I said Kyubi and I were merging, right? After he saw her nod, he went on. Well, when I get his memories, they are all in chronological order. He saw her struggling to control her laughter now. So, you mean to tell me that Kyubi, Lord of the Tailed Demons, actually she was unable to continue without laughing, so Naruto did it for her. Yes, just about all Kyubi did during his childhood was chase after rabbits. It was like a dam had broken. Anko, who had been sitting up, fell down onto his chest and began to laugh. Not a little chuckle but full-blown laughter. The thought of the great demon lord as a little chibi fox chasing around after a rabbit was just too much. Once she had gotten her laughter under control, she sat back up. Oh, now that was just too funny. She wiped a tear from her eye before her face turned serious. Now, as much as I like sitting here listening to embarrassing stories about the fox, we have a lot of things to do today. Once Naruto nodded, she got off of him and offered him her hand. Once they were both standing and dusted off, he turned to her. What's up first, sensei? Anko grinned at him. She liked the sound of that. Well, first thing we're going to do is eat. As if on cue, Naruto's stomach gave a loud roar. Glad to see that you agree. Naruto gave a bit of a blush at that, and rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Don't worry about it. Now we're off to the dango stand. She was about to walk off, but Naruto had a question. What's dango? She did a face fault before she turned around with an unreadable look on her face. What did you ask? Do you mean to say that you've never had dango before? He gave her a sheepish nod, then he couldn't read her face. Then before he knew it, he was out the door, down a flight of stairs, and out the front door, into the forest. Anko was like a woman possessed. He didn't even know what he had done wrong. He voiced his thoughts to her. You haven't done anything wrong. Unless you count not eating the greatest food in existence a mistake. At his incredulous look she continued. Dango is like food from the gods. Not eating it is like a crime against yourself. And when we get there you are going to eat some or I will shove it down your throat. She gained a very scary glint in her eye at this point. He nodded, afraid of what she might do if he disagreed. That seemed to placate her, and 5 minutes later they were at the dango stand. A very full Naruto let out a burp, and a content sigh. Anko was right, dango was food from the gods. Those little rice balls had sent him on a first-class trip to Cloud 9. He picked at his teeth with the skewer before flicking it over to the wall with the rest of his and Anko's skewers. Between the two of them, the wall was like a giant pincushion. There were over 100 of the needles like skewers stuck in it. With a dreamy look on his face, he looked over at Anko and saw her mirroring his look. She was watching him with amusement in her eyes, and a smirk that screamed, I told you so. All right, I admit it. You were right. Dango is the food of the gods. But ramen is too, he added quietly to himself. Damn straight. Now we need to go shopping. As they walked out the door, she continued talking. We need to get you something that doesn't scream kill me. She heard him mumble something under his breath. What was that? He turned his head towards her. Louder, he said, it's because none of the shops would let me in. I had to dig my clothes out of the trash. Her eyes softened at that. She slung an arm around his shoulders, and they continued on. Although she didn't show it, inside she was seething. These villagers had no intelligence at all. They could not see that he was just a boy, not the demon he carried. The same thing had happened to her when Orochimaru left the village. They saw her as the former Sannin, and tried to hurt her on several occasions. Fortunately she was already a ninja, able to defend herself. But this boy was not trained, and she shuddered when she thought of how hard it must have been for him. It was then that she entertained herself by thinking up all the different ways to kill a villager. As though he picked up on her thoughts, Naruto stopped, and looked at her. Sensei, I want you to promise me something. What? He sighed. I want you to promise me that you will not harm the villagers for what they've done. Now that was unexpected. Why don't you want me to hurt them? You know they deserve it. Yes, that's true, but I've got something better planned. He noted her curiosity and continued. I'm going to make them see that I'm the one who saved them from Kyubi. I want them to know that they tried to kill their savior. And when they do realize that I'm the hero of this village, I'm going to make them beg for my forgiveness. But before I do, I want the village council to publicly kiss my ass. One cheek at a time. Anko blinked, and just stared at him before bursting out laughing. Oh, now that is a good plan. That is far better than I could even come up with. And I can't wait to see the reactions you get when you tell the council to kiss your ass. Oh God, I knew I made the right choice, you are indeed a worthy apprentice. Very well, I won't harm the villagers unless they start something. They fell into a comfortable silence as they walked to the clothing store. When they got there, the clerk didn't want to let Naruto in, but a quick threat from Anko shut him up. With Anko's help, he picked out 8 pairs of baggy black pants and a black leather trench coat that went down to his ankles. Replacing his ninja sandals were black steel-toed boots. He had decided to forego a shirt, as he didn't like the way they felt. That, and Anko said he looked better without one. They made an imposing pair as they walked towards the Hokage Tower. Naruto had his coat billowing around his feet, his boots making ominous thumping sounds as he walked. Anko, on the other hand, had a look on her face that screamed at you, telling you to stay away, if not then say hello to her slithery, fork-tongued friends. They entered the tower, and swept past the secretary who was telling them to stop. The Umbu guards almost stopped them, but after a look from Anko they stood aside. When they entered they saw the Sandaime sitting at his desk with a mountain of paperwork on it. He looked a little bit shocked at Naruto's appearance before he gathered himself. "Hello Naruto-kun, Anko-chan." "Good morning Hokage-sama." "Hey old man." Sarutobi had to bite back a chuckle when Anko looked disapprovingly at Naruto and his lack of respect. But when she saw that the Hokage didn't reprimand him, she held her tongue. "What, may I ask, brings you both here this morning?" asked the Hokage. He saw Anko straighten up before she stated in an official voice. "Hokage-sama, I wish to take Uzumaki Naruto as my apprentice." Sarutobi's mouth literally dropped open. If he was expecting anything, it certainly wasn't that. Anko had pretty much sworn to never take an apprentice after what had happened with her former teacher. Now she just goes ahead and wants to take Naruto as her apprentice. What in the world changed her mind? Only when he heard Naruto's quiet chuckling did he close his mouth with a snap. "Can I ask why, Anko-chan?" She nodded at him. "Yes, Hokage-sama, you may." You see, she proceeded to tell the Hokage about how she had followed and saved Naruto, as well as what happened after that. When she finished, the Hokage was frowning in deep thought. When he looked up again, he spoke. "While I agree with your decision to take Naruto as your apprentice, you and Kakashi must both sign this consent form." Anko nodded and signed the paper. "Good, now before I call Kakashi here, there is something that I'm curious about. Naruto, when you cut your wrists, why did the Kyuubi not heal you?" Anko looked up sharply at that. "What do you mean by that, Hokage-sama?" "Well, in Kakashi's mission report of the mission to Wave Country states that whenever Naruto was cut, or injured, the wound would glow red and heal within minutes. I am curious as to the reason why it was not so here." Naruto cleared his throat slightly and began his explanation. "Well, you see, my body can only use the amount of chakra I have already absorbed from the fox. Right now I have enough to heal anything short of a major injury. When I use up his chakra, however, I no longer heal as fast as I do normally until it builds back up. Yesterday I channeled the chakra that I had access to, and used it to make a barrier around the arena. This would serve 2 purposes. First, it would prevent anyone from coming in to save me. And second, it would use up all of the Kyuubi chakra that I had access to, effectively preventing him from healing me." Both of them looked at him with amazement. They never knew so much about his healing ability. That, along with his ability to channel the Kyuubi's chakra, was amazing. "That is quite amazing, Naruto-kun. So you are saying that you can use the Kyuubi's chakra at will?" Naruto nodded. "Yes, I can, but my control needs working on. My chakra control is still pretty damn low, so cannot use the chakra for small subtle things, only large things like the barrier and energy attacks." Sarutobi smiled at him. "Will you ever cease to amaze me, Naruto-kun?" "Not a chance, old man, just as soon as this village treats me like a human and not Kyuubi." The office was quiet for a moment before Anko spoke up. "No disrespect intended, Hokage-sama, but do you think you could get Kakashi up here soon? I want to start on Naruto's training as soon as possible." "Ah yes, of course, not a problem at all." He summoned his secretary. "Please summon Hatake Kakashi here immediately." The room was silent as they waited for Kakashi to show up. 10 minutes later he poofed in, his perverted book in his left hand. "Hey Hokage-sama, you wanted to see me?" "Yes, I did, Kakashi, please take a seat." As he sat down, he took note of the other 2 occupants. Mitarashi Anko and a boy dressed in a similar manner as her. He looked at the boy before something clicked. It was Naruto. He looked completely different from what he used to. He looked back at the Hokage as he began to speak. "Kakashi, we need you to sign this form." "What is it, Hokage-sama?" This was where Anko spoke up. "I'm taking him as my apprentice, Hatake. As soon as you sign that, it'll be finalized." Kakashi looked over at her. "Why are you taking Naruto as your apprentice?" She sneered at him. "Because I choose to, Hatake, and because you have failed to teach him anything." He was surprised at the open hostility in her voice. That's not true. I taught Naruto, he began to think. What had he taught Naruto? Looking back, he realized that he hadn't taught Naruto almost anything. He was always too busy training Sasuke to worry about Naruto. Tree climbing? Said Naruto, speaking for the first time since Kakashi arrived. He taught me tree climbing, that's it. The rest of the time he was too busy training Sasuke to even bother with me. Kakashi flinched at the boy's words. All of them were true, and he would not deny it. Anko spoke up again. Sign the form, Kakashi, or I'll introduce your crotch to my knee. Both Kakashi and the Hokage flinched at her words. As did a certain author and every male reading it. Naruto, on the other hand, merely quirked his lips. Anko just looked impatient as she watched Kakashi. Well, this would be good for him, Kakashi mused. And besides, I don't think he would let me train him after this. Anko will make him strong. Yes, this is for the best. I really don't want to get kneed there today. So Kakashi stood up, walked to the Hokage's desk, and signed the form. As the Hokage put the paper in his desk, he said, "It's now official. Uzumaki Naruto is the apprentice of Madarashi Anko. When he takes the Chunin exams, he will rejoin his old team. That is all, and good luck to you both." All three of them nodded their goodbyes to the Hokage. But before they left the room, Anko went over to Kakashi. She stood there for a second before kneeing him as hard as she could in the crotch. He flew a good 2 feet in the air before he landed on the ground, grabbing at his crushed jewels. That was for Naruto. If you ever want children, I suggest you get yourself to the hospital. Bye. She then proceeded to the exit with her arm around Naruto's shoulders. Come on, kid. We've got training to do. Okay, Anko-cha sensei. Sarutobi cringed as he called for one of his guards and told him to take Kakashi to the hospital. He looked out the window and saw the newest apprentice and his teacher walking towards the training grounds. Those two are going to cause quite an uproar. He watched as a villager glared at Naruto, and Anko drove him off with another well-placed knee. He cringed yet again. Yes, quite an uproar. While they were walking towards the training grounds, Anko said she had to grab something. So Naruto was forced to wait outside while she bought something in the weapons store. When she got out, there was a somewhat large package in her arms, and by the way she was holding it, whatever it was heavy. After they had reached training ground 14, Anko opened the box. Inside were 2 black bracers. Neither of them shined in the light, and on each was the kanji for snake, written in blood red. When she took them out, she turned to face Naruto. Hold out your arms. Knowing that arguing would be pointless, he complied. After both were attached, she let his arms fall. It was as if she had chained his arms to the ground. He had to exert great effort merely to lift them. God! How much damn weight did you put on these things, you sadistic bitch? Oh, just 100 pounds on each arm, Gaki. 100 pounds? Why so much? I can barely even lift my arms, let alone fight with these on. Anko nodded at him. Yup, that's good. At his incredulous look, she went on. While I'm explaining that, I want you to go over there and punch that log 200 times. After he had begun to punch, audibly mumbling something about sadist whores and snake skins, Anko swung herself up into a nearby tree, ignoring his comments for the moment, and started her lesson. First off, because of the fox in you, you'll probably adapt to that weight in about 3 or 4 days. That means that we'll be able to get your speed up to where it needs to be sooner. He sent her a confused look, to which she answered, to use the hidden snake style, that's the taijutsu style I'm going to be teaching you. You have to be fast. You need to be fast enough to hit an opponent 10 times, and make it look like you only hit him once, so practice hitting faster, crotch stain. Naruto complied, but began muttering something that sounded like die, Anko, die with each punch he made. Though to be honest, at least she actually paid attention to him. Unlike that bastard Kakashi, he just focused on a supposed genius who didn't have what it takes to be a ninja. He just wanted to kill his near-invincible brother, and didn't give a damn about his teammates, or the village. Snapping himself out of his gloomy thoughts, he returned to listening to his evil, sadistic, sexy as hell, twisted sensei speak about the hidden snake style of taijutsu. This style focuses on fighting just like a snake. It will teach you to bend around your opponent's attacks, create an opening in their defense, and disable or kill them with a few hits while using little to no effort. And how, pray tell, do we disable them in a few hits? To him that sounded nearly impossible. Unless your opponent was really weak, they just wouldn't go down that quickly. That, my student, is one of the secrets of the style. When we fight, we use pressure points. He gave her a confused look. The human body contains many pressure points. By simply pushing a few of them, I could make you lose control of a limb, knock you out, or kill you. He gained an awed and terrified look at the power of this style, his style, but you won't be learning the dim mak or death touch for a very long time. It is our final technique, and it is very dangerous in the wrong or inexperienced hands. He accepted that fact readily. Naruto didn't think that he was ready for a technique like that either. The thought of killing someone with a mere touch. He shivered at the power of it. He vowed never to use this technique unless he absolutely had to. Anko saw him shiver with a small bit of pride. He had realized the power of the dim mak. That was a good thing. Now she wouldn't have to provide a demonstration of its power. She too shuddered when she thought of the demonstration Orochimaru had given her. At the time, she was nearing her mastery of the hidden snake style. There was only the final attack to learn. She was with Orochimaru on a scroll delivery mission. It was simple, but a good chance to get out of the village. On the way they encountered a small group of bandits. They were easy to dispatch, but her former mentor had kept the leader alive. She was confused, until he explained that he was going to demonstrate their final attack. He tapped the man once in the chest, and he was dead. She had been completely terrified of its power. Naruto snapped her out of her musings when he announced that he had finished. There was sweat pouring down his face, and his arms were simply hanging at his sides. His breathing was hard, and he was muttering something about slave drivers. Anko gave a smirk at that. If you think I'm a slave driver now, just wait until we start the hard stuff. She laughed at the loud groan that he responded with. She looked over at the sun, and saw that it was almost set. Alright kid, we've only got a little while until sundown, and there's one more thing I'd like you to do today. He groaned again. Quit complaining, it's not going to be that hard. You're going to sign the snake contract. After you do that, you'll be able to summon snakes to help you fight, and I'll be able to teach you my snake jutsu. Naruto nodded at her, but when he did, he felt very dizzy. He got a very strange and powerful pulling sensation in his head. He began to stumble as Anko asked him if he was alright. I think Kyuubi is calling me. Anko gained a somewhat scared expression on her face. I'm gonna pass out. Don't try to wake me. And with that he fell, but before he hit the ground he felt something soft catch him, before all became black. When he woke up he felt somewhat damp. Looking around he saw that he was in a sewer. His mind was a sewer. The thought was kind of embarrassing. He decided that when he had the time, he would change it so it looked better. He started down the only hallway. On the way there were rotting and disfigured doors lining the walls. Each of them had a different color. The majority were black, blue, and red. But he did see a few white and pink in the mix. After a few minutes of walking, he saw the end. It was a giant cage with the kanji 4 seal on it. 2 blood-red eyes peered out at him from the blackness of the cage. There was silence for a moment, before Kyuubi spoke in a deep rumbling voice that seemed to shake the entire place. Hello, Kit. Kit? He certainly wasn't expecting that. I see that you have answered my call. It took quite a bit of work to call you here. Just why have you called me here? You're here because I've decided to help you. Oh, don't look so surprised. Until we finish merging, and a good many years after that, my conscience is bound to you. If you die, I will die. And I don't want to die. Naruto nodded. It must have been a very big shock to find out that you were going to die when you were previously immortal. But he wanted to know something. Hey Fox, what exactly is the deal with this merging? The old man didn't know too much about it. From what I've deduced, the merging will pass all of my power, memories, and life force onto you. But this process is different from a normal merging. He continued after he saw Naruto's confused look. A normal merging would essentially blend 2 essences together to form a new being. The seal that bound me to you, however, was different. Everything that I have will be passed on to you. You will absorb everything, but my conscience will remain separate from yours. As I said, it will disappear after we finish merging. Essentially, you will become me. Naruto reeled back in shock. He would become Kyuubi. So the villagers were right, I am a demon. The Kyuubi, as if picking up on his thoughts, began to speak. You will not become a demon. Naruto felt relief flood through him at that statement. Your chakra and body will change, and you mate will become immortal, but that does not make you a demon. I suppose you could call yourself a Hanyu, a hybrid between a human and a demon. But more importantly, you are not me. What? But you just said. I meant that you would become me by taking all of my titles and the like. We are 2 separate consciousnesses, and that is the way it will remain. He sat back, and allowed the boy to process all of that. Naruto still had not comprehended all of the Kyuubi's words. He started to go over them in his head. He would not become a demon, only have the powers of one. After going through the rest of the conversation he nodded and accepted it. But then he backpedaled. Immortal. He was going to be immortal. Had he been conscious he would have passed out, but he was already unconscious, so that was out. He settled for adopting a shocked look and falling back on his ass. A few minutes later, Kyuubi's laughter brought him back to attention. So I see you have comprehended what I told you, huh? Naruto could only nod dumbly. Good. I know how big of a shock it was when I found out that I was immortal. That was confusing to Naruto. Wait. Found out? What do you mean found out? Weren't you like immortal from birth? Kyuubi sighed at him. No, I wasn't. You haven't reached this point in my memories, but I was a normal fox at birth. A few years after where you are in my memories, a strange man came and captured me. He had 8 other creatures with him as well. A tanuki, a cat, a strange turtle, a cockatrice, a dog, a weasel, a badger, and a snake. These creatures would become the 9 bijou. He opened a portal and took us to a fiery dimension. It was as you humans call it, hell, or the underworld. Once we were there, he performed a ritual that would give us both power and intelligence. The amount we received was based upon our potential. I was the one with the most. Our powers were measured in tails, 9 being the greatest amount. Our creator, I suppose, had the equivalent of 10 tails. He had truly ungodly power. He placed a seal on us that would ensure our unending loyalty to him. We were used as weapons of war. He would send us out to destroy all of the powerful demons, so that he could take control of the entire dimension. Eventually, that day came, and he crowned himself the Lord of Hell. Anyway, over time he had brought back others of our respected species so we could mate. Well, when that happened, the seal over me began to weaken. Her presence weakened his hold over me. I began to realize that I was being used. He saw this, and decided to take care of the threat. He knew that he could handle any of us on our own, but should I break free, I would be able to release the others, and overthrow him. So he killed her, but her death solidified his downfall. When he killed her, she was pregnant. I became so angry at her, and my kid's death, that the seal broke. He didn't realize it at the time, so I was able to free the others under his nose. When the time came, all of us stormed his castle, and fought against him. The battle was long and hard, but just as he predicted, he could not defeat all of us. We were unable to completely kill him though, so we sealed his soul into a sword called Soanga. Each of us placed a part of our power into it in order to keep him sealed forever. After that, because I was the most powerful, the others named me the new lord. Well, after a few years, we found the technique he had used to bring us there. I decided to go back, look for a mate, and see what had become of my home world. The others decided to come with me so they too could see. Each of them had already had many children, so their legacies were safe, just in case. When we arrived, we found it impossible to return. To open the portal back to hell required the power of a 10-tail, and none of us had that. The technique had to be performed individually, so we could not combine our strengths. So we decided to explore the world, and see what had changed. We found that humans had become plenty in number, but were not yet as developed as us. I continued on my search for a mate, and found that none of the foxes were like my Kikyo. They were tiny and weak. None of us knew how to give them power and size like ourselves, so I was unable to mate. The others sometimes call me the Eternal Bachelor. They both got a chuckle out of that. After that, we began to look after the humans as they were the most like ourselves. We watched as they developed villages, and the ability to use chakra. It was soon after that we were approached by another powerful being. He said that he too was from another dimension, and that he created and watched over this world. He was what you humans call him, Kami. He explained to us the chakra ability of the humans, and its potential. What he didn't want was for the humans to use this power to become unnatural. He had made the humans the way they were for a reason, and didn't want them to defy his laws. He asked us to be the executors of his will, and maintain nature's laws. We agreed, and have maintained the laws for hundreds of years. Whenever the humans tried to gain the powers of the gods, which we were considered, we killed them and all those who were close to them. The humans labeled us demons for this, and have scorned us ever since. Eventually, word reached us that a man was trying to attain immortality once again. It was the Sannin, Orochimaru. I found out that he was a member of the Leaf Village, and made my way there. I was unaware of the fact that he had left the village only a week before I arrived. I attacked, killing many of the village before I was sealed by your Yondaime. After that, I continued to watch the world through your eyes. Once I learned that Orochimaru had left, I began to feel guilty. Those feelings were only intensified when I saw how the villagers treated you. I decided to help you by feeding my chakra to you faster than normal. This gave you your advanced healing rate and enabled you to survive the beatings you received. I continued to watch you over the years. I saw how you became strong, never giving in to the hatred. I watched as you became a ninja, how your control was unstable because of my chakra. I saw how you held your own against 2 Jounin-level ninja. And I saw how you gave in, but have come back stronger than before. And I am proud to call you my heir. Proud of him? The fox was proud of him. That was incredible. The most powerful being on the planet was proud of him. He had also saved him when he would have otherwise died. Thank you? No problem. Now we have to get to the reason why I called you here. Naruto gave him a nod and stood up. Now with the way the seal works, we'll be completely merged in about 11 years. I think that's too much. There are many powerful enemies out there, and you'll need my help to defeat them. Naruto gave a nod, which was true. There were many powerful people who might want him because of the Kyuubi, and he was still just a genin. Now, you see that seal there? He got a nod in response. If you were to rip off a section, it would enable me to give you my chakra quicker. Another thing it would allow me to do would be to make the necessary changes to your body. It would also allow me to maintain mental contact with you while you're awake. Naruto was thinking, it was a good deal, but he needed to know a few things before he accepted it. Hey Fox, if I do this, how long will the merging take? And what kind of changes will you be making? Good questions. If you do this, the merging will only take about 3 years. That's one tail every 4 months. The changes I mentioned will enhance all of your physical abilities. Your senses will increase exponentially, and I will make your body grow to be about 6 feet tall. I will alter your body so it produces lean but not bulky muscles. Once you get to the speed that Anko woman wants you to be, I will ensure that you stay that fast without needing weights anymore. You should tell her to increase the weight every 2 days. Your muscles will become as hard as steel, which will enhance your strength. I will also increase your endurance. There may be some slight physical changes, but nothing serious like a tail. Naruto thought on that for a moment. This was a very good deal. Slight physical changes in exchange for Kyuubi's full power within 3 years. And all of his physical traits would be improved. He would take this deal any day of the week. How much should I rip off? Kyuubi looked at the seal as if judging it. I'd say about 1/5 would do. I'll control the amount of chakra you receive so you won't have an overload and die. Naruto cringed. That would not be good. So under the fox's advice, he took off about 1/5 of the seal, and felt a very small continuous amount of chakra draining into him. Feeling his chakra coils widen slightly and a fresh feeling of added strength, he smiled. He was just about to say goodbye, thinking that he was done here when the fox spoke up again. I don't want you to sign the summoning contract of the snakes, Naruto. Nanny! Naruto stared at him for a moment, shocked to the core, before shouting, What the hell do you mean by that? I'll need to sign the contract in order to use the snake jutsu Anko-sensei wants to teach me, and you know it. Kyuubi decided to stop him before he began a very long rant. And what would happen if you were to meet the snake summoner Orochimaru? You know that the snakes would listen to him over you because he has more experience. You would be killed without a doubt, especially if you had not absorbed enough of my chakra. Naruto deflated at that. He was right, but what would he do now? He needed to sign the snake contract to use those jutsu. He could not think anymore as Kyuubi voiced his solution. Because you cannot sign the normal snake contract, you will be signing a different snake contract. More specifically, the demonic snake contract. Naruto backpedaled at that. There was a demonic snake contract. How in the world did that happen? Sensing his confusion, Kyuubi began to explain. Like I said before, we were unable to return to hell. This meant that the others could not see their mates. However, after humans developed the summoning technique, we saw the potential for its usage. We altered it, and used it to call others from hell to earth. Each of the other Bijou created a contract, which was given to their heirs for safekeeping. With this technique, the others were able to see their mates for a short period of time. They were not, however, able to keep the ones they summoned here. The technique was only designed for temporary transportation, unlike the one we used to come here. Naruto was once again floored by this information. The demonic snake contract. He was completely giddy at the idea. These were the most powerful snakes in existence. Combining that with Anko's snake jutsu would mean hell for whomever he was fighting. There are a few things you should know about this contract, Naruto. The first being that to summon them takes a lot of power. In order to do it, you'll need to call upon all of your chakra and my chakra that you have access to. Now that was going to be a pain. The second thing is that the demon snakes have control over an element, the higher ranking ones having 2 or more. Which snake you summon will depend on your situation. The one who has the contract is the temporary boss, Takiko, the soldier prince. He is Orochi's son and has control over earth and water. Now that would prove useful. Being able to call upon something that could completely counter your opponent's jutsu was great. The power that these snakes held completely amazed him. Now, there's one more thing I'd like you to do. Naruto looked up at him and asked what that was. I want you to go to the land of waves as soon as possible. He was confused and voiced his thoughts. Once you're in wave country, you will be able to retrieve my heirloom. I have hidden it in the middle of the sea, and you will be able to access it with a special jutsu from Wave Country. Now that was interesting. But why would he hide it in the middle of the sea? Why did you hide it in the sea, and what is it? I hid it in the sea because it would cause untold destruction if anyone but you got their hands on it. It will only answer to the Lord of Hell. This blade will mark you as the new lord. It is the sword of hell, Soanga. Naruto gasped. That blade? The one that the previous lord was sealed into? Kyuubi confirmed this. How in the hell do you expect me to control him? When we sealed him in there, we used a special technique. Each of us used a bit of our power to keep him in. This also sealed his personality. He is unable to affect any of the bijou. But should a human get a hold of it, the seal would weaken and enable him to take control of the human. He would destroy this world, just to find us. I could not let that happen, so I used my mastery of water to place him at the bottom of the ocean where no one but me could reach him. Because you are going to become me, he will not be able to control you. Wow. Thank you for trusting me with this power. It is yours by right. You are the Lord of Hell, and that blade is yours. Now get out of here. Sign the contract now, and get to Wave soon after. I will. Thank you, Kyuubi. He felt himself being pushed out, and found himself in the training ground with his head on something warm. He felt something moving through his hair, and looked up to see Anko's face. It felt really good to have her hand running through his hair, and he began to push against her hand before she stopped. He whined with disappointment. Why'd you stop? She snorted at him. Because you have some explaining to do. What was that all about? Naruto continued to grumble before he smirked and said, if you don't keep going, I won't tell you anything. She mumbled something about increasing training tomorrow, before complying. So he told her everything. How Kyuubi got his power, about breaking the seal, overthrowing the other lord, coming here, the meeting with Kami, and finally, why he attacked the village. Then came the information about the merging, his new enhancements, and the demonic snake contract. To say she was shocked would be an understatement. She had even stopped stroking his hair before he pushed against her hand again. She had gone completely on autopilot for a few minutes while she processed this. So you're saying that? Yup. And you're the new? Yup. And you're going to sign the? Yup. Wow. I know. Whoa, real enlightening conversation there, Kit, sniggered the fox. Well, if you're going to do anything, you'd better do it now. The sun is almost set. Looking over and seeing that she was right, Naruto groaned. Oh, shut up, you big baby. Now come on, I want to see these snakes, announced Anko. Naruto groaned once again, but did as she asked. Do you have anything that can replenish my chakra in like a minute or two? She nodded and took a small pill out of her coat pocket. This is a soldier pill. It can replenish your chakra. Now come on. I want to see this. Wincing inwardly at the horrible, sour taste of the pill, but was somewhat surprised when he felt his chakra reserves filling back to nearly 100%. Looking at the Jounin's expectant face, he began mentally laughing at the Jounin, who was now acting like a 5-year-old who wanted a new toy. He tried to comply. Hey Kyuubi, you there? Can you hear me? Yes, Kit, I can hear you. Good. Now can you tell me the seals for that summoning technique? Yes, but first tell that woman to get farther away. Takiko is pretty big, and I mean big. It makes that Manda look tiny. After Naruto did so, he ran through the very long list of seals after biting his thumb. Throwing all of his and Kyuubi's power behind it, he growled out, demonic summoning technique. Anko watched as a huge cloud of red smoke engulfed them and a huge amount of the land surrounding them. When the smoke thinned and cleared, what she saw amazed her. There, in the middle of the now ruined training ground, was the biggest snake she had ever seen. It was much larger than Manda at around 2,000 feet long. Its jaws were large enough to swallow 20 humans, and it was colored a deep brownish red. Its head was long and held a unique shaping of its jaw line, resembling somewhat predators of ages past. It gave the snake boss a rather noble, extinguished look. Its body had small curved spikes ran down both its side for the entirety of its length, and its tail almost resembled the tail of an eel, with small blade-shaped fins were connected to the top and bottom of the last 30 meters of its tail. It looked around, as if looking for someone before it said, Kyuubi-sama? Where are you? Naruto shouted up to him, I'm right here, Takiko. The snake stopped looking around, and looked down at Naruto. He brought himself down to Naruto's level, before saying, You foolish little human. Kyuubi-sama is a great fox, you are a tiny human. Now tell me where Kyuubi-sama is before I eat you. Naruto bristled at the jab at his height. Kyuubi is sealed within me, and we are currently merging. I am Kyuubi. The snake widened his eyes in shock. This was his lord's container. He sank into what was unmistakably a bow. I am sorry, Kyubi-sama. I did not know. Please forgive me. Naruto waved him off. Don't worry about it. Just as long as you don't call me short again. Of course not, Kyubi-sama. It will never happen again, I swear. Naruto popped the soldier pill into his mouth before he said, I'll trust you on that. Now, the reason I summoned you is because I wish to sign the summoning contract of your family. That is, if you allow it. The snake only paused for a moment before he said, Of course, Kyubi-sama. I shall do anything you ask of me. He stood still for a moment, before a giant scroll came out of his mouth and fell to the ground. Naruto walked over and unrolled the scroll. There was only one name at the end. Yamada no Orochi. He proceeded to cut his thumb and sign it, Uzumaki Naruto. Once he was done, Takehiko re-swallowed it, and said, Our contract with you is now complete, Kyubi-sama. You will be able to call upon any of us to aid you in battle. If you'll not be needing me, I'd like to return to my mate. Naruto nodded at him. Of course you may, Takehiko. Thank you for all the help you have given me. Before he disappeared, the snake bowed to him again, and said, You are most welcome, Kyubi-sama. After the red smoke cleared, Anko came over to Naruto. That was incredible. That snake was far more powerful than Manda. I can't wait to see how much more powerful my snake jutsu are with demonic snakes. This is going to be great. She glomped him before letting go and standing back. After a mental reminder from Kyubi, Naruto asked her, Anko-sensei, I need to go to the Land of Waves, as soon as possible. And why is that? Because I need to retrieve an heirloom. Anko raised an eyebrow at that. What kind of heirloom was this? She voiced her question to him. It is the blade that will mark me as the Lord of Hell, Soanga. It contains the powers of Hell, and can only be wielded by my hand. She seemed a little shocked before she regained her composure. I suppose I can ask Hokage-sama for a week or two off. But I want you to be at least competent in the basics of our style before we leave, got it? He nodded his consent. Good. Now come on, I'll walk you home. You still look a bit wobbly. Her statement was entirely true. Even a soldier pill could not completely refill his reserves. When they were close to his apartment, Naruto's legs gave out on him and he grabbed onto Anko for support. Unfortunately, the unexpected weight added to his bracers was too much for her, and she was pulled down with him. She had been pulled right on top of him. Their eyes met, and everything appeared to blur out of their vision except each other. Their lips were only a few inches apart, and the distance slowly began to close. They were close. Their noses were almost touching when an alley cat knocked over a garbage can. The noise brought them back to reality, and Anko jumped up and off of him. Both of them were blushing redder than a tomato. Finally, when they calmed down enough, Anko extended her hand down to Naruto. He took it, and the contact only served to return their blushes to their original intensity. Once he was able to speak again, Naruto said, We should probably keep going. My apartment's on the next block. Anko nodded and they resumed walking, blushing all the way. As they walked, thoughts were zipping through Anko's head. I can't believe that happened. Was I really about to kiss him? Was he about to let me? Does that mean he wanted it too? Does he like me? But he's like 10 years younger than me. There's no way I could like him. Is there? Well, I have already slept with him. But that was completely different. Besides, it was only sleeping. It's not like we did that. But it did feel nice to wake up with him there. What the hell is going on with me? Similar thoughts were going through Naruto's head. Although unlike her, he had a certain fox answering all of his questions. I can't believe that happened. Well, it did. Nice going, kid. You're not a complete after all. Damn you, Fox team. But was she really about to kiss me? Yes, she was. Was I going to let her? Yes. Does that mean she wanted it too? Yes, it does. Does she like me? Probably. But she's like 10 years older than me. Age means nothing to an immortal. There's no way I could like her. Is there? Of course there is. Besides, you've already slept with her. That was completely different. Sure it was, replied the fox sarcastically. It was. All we did was sleep. It's not like we did that. But you wanted to do th8 with her, didn't you? No. Well, maybe. You're getting it. It did feel good waking up next to her, though. I rest my case. What the hell is going on with me? I think you're falling for her, Kit. Anko and Naruto both let out identical groans at the confusing thoughts. They looked at each other before they blushed, and looked away again. When Naruto looked up again, they were at his apartment complex. He looked towards his sensei again before starting to speak. Well, this is it. I'll see you tomorrow, sensei? Both of them were barely keeping the blushes off of their cheeks. Why, yeah, at 6. Naruto gave her a nod. Well, thanks for walking me home. And not a problem. Well, I better get going. Good night, Anko-sensei. Right, good night, Naruto. As they began to walk, their arms brushed each other. The blush returned full force, and they walked a little bit faster to their respective homes. One thought was on both of their minds as they slid into their beds that night. Today was a very interesting day. The next morning at 5:59 a.m., Naruto was awakened by a large amount of ice-cold water being dumped on him. He jumped out of the bed in order to kill whoever had done that, and succeeded in bashing his head against his nightstand, knocking himself out. When he was awakened a second time, he found himself unable to move. Looking at whatever was on his chest, he saw a slender, feminine leg pinning him down. He followed the leg to the body it was attached to, and saw his new sensei. He also saw that he had a very good view of what was under her skirt. Before he forced himself to look at her face, he saw what looked like black silk. Anko merely watched as his gaze found her crotch. She was about to stomp him for being a pervert when he focused on her face. That's good, the kid ain't a pervert. Now I don't have to beat it out of him. She gave a smirk when she looked at his still bleary eyes. When I said I'd see you at 6, I meant it. He let out a groan, and mumbled about it being too early. I don't care if you think it's too early. I'm the sensei, and what I say goes. So, get dressed and meet me outside in 10 minutes. She then proceeded to leave the apartment, leaving Naruto alone on the floor. Naruto, meanwhile, let out another groan. It was way too early, and his body felt like it had been completely stretched. Letting out a sigh, he got up, and proceeded to the bathroom. After he had showered, he tried to put on his clothes. Tried being the operative word. His clothes no longer fit him. All of them were at least a foot too short. His coat was the only thing that fit somewhat properly. Even then, it now hung around his calves. This was not good. Hey Fox! What the hell is going on here? What's your problem? I told you that I'd make you 6 feet tall. I just did it a little sooner than expected. A little sooner? I thought it would take like a month or 2 to reach this height. And the way these clothes fit me is completely ridiculous. Well, you should have thought of that sooner. It's not my problem you don't think ahead. Think ahead? You just told me about these changes yesterday. You expected me to know that this would happen? You should have anticipated it, yes. Anticipated it, my ass. You planned this, you fucking fox. Are you done now? You know what? I'm sorry. I understand why you were doing this. You do? The fox now seemed genuinely interested. Yes, I do. You're angry about your situation, and the only way to release your anger is by riling me up. It's okay. I'd probably do the same if I was you. Really? Yes. I mean, who wouldn't be upset over the fact that they have no opposable thumbs? Silence. You know, since monkeys have opposable thumbs, does that mean they're more evolved than you? What did you just say? I was saying that you're less evolved than a monkey because they have opposable thumbs and you don't. Rafa! Kyuubi began to throw himself at the cage bars, screaming obscenities at Naruto. The boy, however, did nothing more than close off the mental communication, and walked to his door with a laugh. Opening the door, Naruto found Anko standing in the hall. It was then that he saw that he was taller than Anko. She had a shocked look on her face, and was forced to look up at him. Kid? What happened to you? Kyuubi did it. She nodded at him. Right. Well, I guess we'll have to get you some new clothes. Come on, we still need to get breakfast. An hour and a half later, teacher and student arrived at the training ground. Looking around at what was once a forestry area, he saw destruction. Turning to his sensei, he asked her, what happened here? Anko's sweat dropped. He didn't remember? You destroyed it when you summoned that snake last night. Don't you remember? Naruto scratched the back of his head with a sheepish smile. Really? I didn't really get a good look at the field before we left. Anko just looked at him. Didn't get a good look? The field was completely demolished. How could he not see? Well, he was nearly fainting from chakra depletion. Whatever, we have to train now. Alright kid, listen up. First I'm going to start teaching you the basics of human anatomy. While I do that, you're going to work on your chakra control. With that said, she took out 2 kunai, and rammed them into the ground with the points facing up. Ano-sensei, how am I gonna do that? He really didn't like the look of the grin that was making its way onto her face. She replied, in a completely innocent voice, you're going to sit on these kunai. Naruto just stared at her for a second, before he screamed, what the hell do you mean sit on the kunai? If I do that I'll be stabbed in the ass. Anko returned his gaze with her own. That's the point. Nani? In order to greatly increase your control in a short time, we use this technique. If you want to save your ass from the kunai, you have to draw chakra to your ass. This is near impossible because there are almost no chakra pathways there. Once you succeed in drawing the correct amount of chakra, you have to concentrate it in an area equal to the tip of the kunai. The pain of being stabbed in the ass is a good motivator. Once you master this exercise, your control will be incredible. Naruto blinked at her. Whoever came up with this was a genius. Alright, Anko-sensei. Anko seemed to think before saying, and while you sit and listen to my lecture, you will practice your hand seals until they're at the speed I want them to be. Naruto could only nod, before he walked over to the kunai. He stood over them, and began to gather his chakra. It was far harder than Anko had described. Apparently he took too long, since Anko muttered something about starting now. That was right before she pushed him down onto the kunai. Not having the right amount of chakra gathered, the kunai went straight into his flesh. He sat there in shock for a few seconds before he screamed. He jumped up, and ran around the field, clutching his ass. Anko was flat out laughing at the display. As soon as she got herself under control, she shouted, alright, get back here. We've still got training. Naruto looked at her, still running around the field. He started to shake his head while he shouted back at her. No! Last time you pushed me, I got stabbed in the ass. I'm in mourning for my ass. Still laughing, Anko just grabbed his jacket as he ran by. You're the one who wanted to become stronger. Now come on. And if you don't, I'll disable your legs so you can't run. Grumbling profusely, he complied. The rest of the morning was spent learning the anatomy and pressure points of a human's right arm. Naruto had been stabbed in the ass over 100 times. Though, by the end of the session he was able to sit on the kunai for a full 20 minutes. Alright kid, now we're gonna put what you just learned into practice. We're gonna spar, but you're only gonna target my right arm. Your goal is to disable it before the end of this session. That's in 6 hours. Now come at me. Naruto was only too happy to oblige. His ass was still aching after Kyubi healed it. Now he had a chance for revenge. He launched himself at her, aiming for a certain set of pressure points. Anko watched him as he launched at her, noting with amusement that he was aiming for the most painful pressure points. If he managed to hit those, her nerves would become inflamed, causing her so much pain, she wouldn't be able to move her arm without suffering. This might prove interesting. For 6 hours Naruto tried to hit her. The most he was able to do was land a glancing blow. She was far too fast for him. By the end, Naruto was standing by Will alone. He desperately wanted to pass out right now. But he refused to be that weak in front of his sensei. At the end of 6 hours, Anko called a stop to the fighting. The kid was good. He wasn't fast enough to really hit her, but his aim was better than she expected. She could see that he was barely standing. Alright kid, that's all for today. You did well. While you weren't able to hit me, your aim was good. Once you get faster you'll be able to disable me with no problem. Now can you walk yourself home? She got a nod. Alright, go get some sleep. I'll see you at 6. With that, they both left the field. The rest of the week went very much the same. Naruto was awakened by ice water every morning. By now he was able to get out of bed and begin an attack before he was neutralized. Kyubi had completed the changes to his body. His body had filled out, and he looked very good. He felt like a big cat, or a fox, with taut wiry muscles that were ready for action at any time. His ears had grown longer and pointed, and his fingernails were now short claws. His eyes were now slitted like a cat, and they were flecked with red. His canines had grown longer, and when he snarled he looked very fox-like. His hair had also grown darker, so it wouldn't be spotted as easy. Over the next 5 days, he would increase Naruto's senses. True to Kyubi's word, his weights were able to increase every 2 days. Anko said that after they reached 1,000 pounds he was no longer required to wear them. At the moment he was at 300. He was still unable to hit Anko, but she said that he would when the weights came off. His aim had improved, but he was far from mastery. His chakra control had increased exponentially. He was now able to sit on the kunai for 3 hours straight. Whereas before he had trouble performing techniques, each one he performed was incredible. His great fireball was now 6 feet across. He had learned every pressure point in the human body. He knew which ones to push to disable a limb, paralyze the opponent, cause small or large amounts of pain, and knock them out. He had learned techniques that would kill in different manners, but as he was not a master, the dim mak was still a mystery to him. He still had trouble with a few of them, but that was to be expected. Anko had started teaching him to maintain calm during combat. She forced him to wait for the opponent to initiate the attack. From there he had to wait for a perfect opportunity to arise before he struck. It frustrated him at first, but he was much better now. He was patient, but still wanted to strike first. That desire was slowly burning itself down though. Today was different. When she woke him up today, she told him she thought he was ready. They were going to wave to collect the payment for the mission Naruto did a few weeks ago. While they were there, they could collect his blade. The Hokage said they had 2 weeks, and that they should take their time. So in a half hour, a fully packed Naruto met his sensei at the gates. They adopted a brisk pace until they were away from the village. After which, they went at a leisurely pace. Anko said that they would stop to train every afternoon, and travel in the mornings. As they walked, Naruto was thinking about what had happened on the night Anko had walked him home. All week she had seemed to pretend that it hadn't happened. He just couldn't ignore it like she could. It was eating away at him. From what Kyubi was telling him, he was starting to fall for her. He was beginning to think the fox was right. He got that strange tingly feeling around her, and it was just like the fox had described. He decided to talk to her about it, but before he could, Kyubi started to talk. This is a good thing. No, it's not. She's just ignoring what happened. I mean, what if she feels the same way? I need to know if she likes me, or if this is a lost cause. This is driving me insane. I didn't mean that, you idiot. I happen to agree with your decision to talk with her. You do? Yes. Oh. Anyway, back to my first thought. It is good that you are away from civilization. When I increase your senses, your body will adjust easier in a forest. Why is that? Because a forest has less loud noises, mirrors, and smells. That's true. Yes. Now get talking. Alright, I'm going. Naruto stopped in the middle of the road. Anko turned around and looked at her apprentice when he spoke. Anko. We need to talk. She sighed. She knew this would have to happen sooner or later. Alright, talk. I need to know if you feel like I do. And how do you feel? I care for you deeply. I get this weird tingly feeling in my gut when I'm around you. The fox told me it's the same feeling he got around Kikyo. He says that I'm starting to fall for you, and I'm starting to believe him. I can't tell if it's the beginning of love, as I've never really felt the emotion. But I need to know if you feel the same way or if I should give up, and save myself the heartbreak. The sheer amount of emotion in his voice tore at her heart. She wanted to say yes to him, but she knew that relationships weren't made in a week. But that didn't mean they couldn't try. Naruto. I care for you too. I just can't say that I feel like you right now. His eyes fell at that, thinking that she was rejecting him. He was surprised when she came over and wrapped him in a hug. He stiffened at first, but eventually relaxed and wrapped his arms around her. But that doesn't mean I'm unwilling to try. If in a couple weeks we don't feel the same, we'll know that it wouldn't work and move on. He was silent for a few seconds before he said, "Thank you." You're welcome. They simply stood there for a few minutes before Anko said, "As much as I like this position, we need to get going." She felt him nod against her, and pulled away. As she did, she gave him a quick peck on the cheek. Seeing his shocked look, she just smiled and started walking. Once Naruto got his mind back, he followed her. While they walked, they stood closer than they would have before. Training that night consisted of sparring, and learning the beginning of the Senjutsu. It was easy in concept, but hard to put into usage. The hard part was giving the snakes their orders. When you summoned them, you needed to pass the orders along with the chakra. Getting it to do that was a real pain. His sparring, however, was just the same as always. After their pitiful meal of rations, Naruto took first watch. Alright, he didn't really watch anything but Anko. She was just so beautiful. Her face was peaceful when she slept. Her nose was kind of scrunched up, and she personified innocence. He really hoped that this relationship would work. When he woke Anko for her shift, she did pretty much the same thing. Although she was more alert than he had been. The night passed by uneventful, and morning came. When she went to wake Naruto, he jerked awake after her first step. He grabbed his ears in pain. Naruto? Naruto, are you alright? He just put his finger to his lips, telling her to be quiet. Then it clicked. The fox must have increased his sense of hearing today. Naruto was in agony. Her steps were like giant explosions, and her voice was like it was being shouted through the biggest megaphone on earth. Kid, what you need to do is concentrate on toning down your hearing. Once you do that, you'll be fine. Once Naruto did, his hearing became only slightly above normal. Thanks, Fox. No problem. Throughout the day, I want you to slowly increase your hearing. That way you'll get used to it. Alright. Looking over at Anko, who was standing perfectly still, he said, It's okay now. I've toned down my hearing for the moment. She let out a sigh, and told him, Well, I was coming to wake you up, we need to get moving. He gave her a nod, and they pulled out their rations. They had estimated that it would take another 3 days to get to Wave at their pace. During their journey to the Wave, they paused during the afternoon for training sessions focusing around taijutsu and extreme chakra control. Anko said that she didn't want her prized students slacking off and becoming weak like those other genin scum. The first few days of training was quite easy for Naruto. With the enhancements he'd gained from Kyuubi, his physical abilities and stamina had increased by at least 30%, and he now could access 3 of Kyuubi's tails without losing control to his bloodlust and the fox's influence super bloodlust. His taijutsu lessons revolved around sparring with his super vindictive and sexy jounin instructor, Anko. Come on, brat, put some effort into it, taunted Anko, sidestepping Naruto's lunge and responding with a painful clip just below his elbow, drawing a small amount of blood, causing Naruto to growl in an animalistic manner as he lunged again, but stopped halfway and delivered a low ground sweep kick, forcing Anko to jump to avoid it. Kage Bushin no Jutsu, a clone of Naruto, appeared in midair, just above Anko, and punched her heavily from behind. She fell heavily onto her knee, but swiftly recovered, swiftly kicking and dispelling the clone. Not bad, kiddo, but if you run into any high-level shinobi, you'll need much more than that. Naruto smirked and pointed up towards the sky. Feeling the presence of chakra from above, Anko leapt back. Less than an instant later, 2 poisonous earth snake summonings grazing her thigh and smashed into the ground, scattering small amounts of earth around them. Shit, too close, thought Anko to herself, more than a little impressed. Naruto had successfully incorporated his shadow clones and snake summonings into his attack style. Who knows how strong he'll become as the years pass. But first, the Chunin exams. The Hokage had warned certain jounin that spy shinobi from various countries would try to infiltrate the Chunin exams under the orders of an unknown leader. She had to make sure that Naruto would be strong enough to handle anything that might happen. They continued training for another 2 hours at close combat, both able to harm each other quite badly, but thanks to a few healing jutsu and a night's sleep, they were ready to travel the next day. The next afternoon, Naruto had to practice his chakra control in a rather unpleasant way. He'd have to sit on a sharp kunai and use his chakra to stop himself from getting his ass skewered, very painful by the way, while his super vindictive and super sexy instructor tried to disrupt his concentration by launching C to be ranked jutsus at him. Suffice it to say, the trail they were traveling was filled with many screams of pain and the occasional laughs of his sexy instructor. And just for the record, does anyone know how many times I've said that about Anko? During the following morning, after a short night's rest, they continued along the trail to the Wave to get the sword of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. As the walk ran, they talked about random things, trying to learn a bit more about each other and to pass the time as they traveled. Naruto preferred looking at Anko than the quickly passing scenery. He told her so, raising a faint blush onto the jounin's face. Besides their training, the traveling was uneventful, except for when Naruto opened his coat because he got hot. Anko had blushed at him and looked away. His muscles were now larger and well-defined. That fox had really done a number on him. And I now give fangirls this permission to drool and fantasize. No, really, go ahead, just don't start beating off, okay? That night, Naruto was told to give orders to his snakes. Besides having a knack for summoning smaller snakes, he wasn't really able to specify what kind. He would need to specify which ones he summoned, depending on the type of attack or poison he needed. This would also be passed through the chakra, as an indication to the summons. As congratulations, he got a kiss on the cheek when he succeeded in making those chakra indications in his summoning. The next morning, Naruto was screaming about the evils of the damn sun. That morning they talked as they walked, continuing their conversation from the previous day. Anko told him about her childhood with her parents before they were killed, and after Orochimaru adopted her. Naruto in turn told her about his childhood in the orphanage, and all the hatred and beatings he received. This brought them closer than before, and they now walked hand in hand. That night he was able to summon each different type of snake and learn about their abilities. The fire snakes specialized in fast and painful poisons. They were also able to burn the enemy on contact. The earth snakes used slow and painful poisons. These snakes preferred to crush their opponents with sheer strength. Water snakes preferred fast lethal poisons. They struck once and ate in a few minutes. Lightning snakes used a very slow poison, as they relied on their lightning-fast speed to deliver multiple bites. The air snakes used very average poisons, as they glided along the air and chased their prey. When he awoke again, he found his nose assaulted by many different scents. When he focused in on Anko, he found she smelled like strawberries, dango, and had a slight bit of a snakish scent on her. The strawberries must come from her shampoo, he mused. Today, they swapped stories of their early training. Naruto's failures and Anko's brutal training under Orochimaru. He managed to master the Senjutsu that night, by calling different kinds of snakes at once. His reward was a kiss on each cheek. The day of their arrival to Wave, Naruto's sense of touch was enhanced. Anko's hand felt like pure silk, and she blushed again when he told her that. When they arrived, Naruto suggested they seek out Tazuna first. On the way, they were thanked by all the people that recognized the boy. This was surprising to Naruto, who had never received thanks and praise from so many people. When they reached Tazuna's house, they found that it had been transformed into a 2-story mansion. Everything was clean and new, and the house was big. Most likely because of the bridge he built. Knocking on the front door, they waited. A moment later, it was opened by a pretty black-haired girl. "Hello, can I help you?" Naruto grinned at her and said, "Of course you can, Tsunami. We're here to collect our payment from the old drunk. Is he here?" Tsunami looked shocked for a second, before she smiled. "Oh, it's you, Naruto. When did you get so tall? And all those changes? I didn't even recognize you." He smiled at her, and said, "I had a huge growth spurt." He got a nod in return. "Please come in." "Father! Inari! Come down! We have guests." A second later a small boy came in the room. Inari still looked the same as ever. But when he recognized Naruto, he ran at him, shouting, "Naruto!" Thanks to the growth spurt, he was only able to hug his leg. When he pulled back, Naruto smiled down at him. "Hey, runt." "I'm not a runt." "Yes, you are." An old man came in the room at this point. Tazuna did a double take at Naruto's appearance. The boy had certainly changed. When he looked over at him, he said, "Hey there, you old drunk, how are you?" "I'm not a drunk, and I've been doing great." "That's good. This is my sensei Mitarashi Anko. We're here to collect the payment for that mission, and to collect an heirloom." Fine. I'll give you the money tonight. But what kind of an heirloom are you looking for? We don't have too many of those here." "Well, it's not exactly here, per se. It resides in the middle of the ocean." Their faces displayed their shock. "How are you going to get it if it's in the middle of the ocean?" "Now that, you'll have to wait until tomorrow to see. But can you recommend a hotel? We need a place to stay." "Nonsense. You can stay here with us. It's no trouble, and it's the least we can do for you." Anko looked like she was going to object, but Naruto held up a hand. "Arguing with that old man is pointless. He's as stubborn as me. Thank you for your hospitality." An amused Tazuna answered, "No problem. Now come on, I'll show you to your rooms." Their rooms ended up being right next to each other. After dinner, Anko educated him on all of the different ways to use the Senjutsu. Sparring was kept light, and they hit the sack early. Tomorrow would be a very tiring day. It was finally time to gain the sword of the 9-tailed fox, the strongest of the tailed demons and second strongest in hell, outclassed only by the Demon King himself, which incidentally was currently sealed in said sword. "Good night, fox." "Yeah, night, Kit," replied the fox from within the seal, and to himself he thought, "This is where it begins. I hope we'll be ready for this, the red dawn will soon rise." The next morning, Naruto got up and began to prepare for the day. Last night Kyubi had taught him the hand signs for the jutsu he needed. When performed correctly, it would split the sea, creating a pathway to the sword. Walking out of his room, he saw Anko leaning against the wall. Kissing her cheek in greeting, he said, "Good morning." Anko looked excited as she replied with her own good morning. "What's gotten you so excited this morning?" She calmed down for a second before she answered. "We're going to explore the middle of the ocean to retrieve the most powerful sword in existence, and you're not excited?" Naruto shrugged. "Well, when you put it that way, I'm very excited." They jumped around for a few moments before calming down and going for breakfast. After joining the family for breakfast, Tazuna asked a question. When are you going to the ocean? Turning to look at him, Naruto replied, Soon Tazuna, very soon. Before we go though, I'll need a few torches. Do you know where I can get them? Tazuna thought for a second before answering, There's a shop where you can get them in town. But why do you need torches? Naruto was puzzled for a second before remembering what he neglected to tell them. Not only is my heirloom in the middle of the sea, it's at the very bottom as well. There's no light down there, so we'll need the torches to see. The family was too shocked to even respond. The bottom of the ocean? The only thing that was certain was that today was going to be a very shocking day. They had no idea how shocking. After acquiring a few torches from a small shop about a 10-minute walk away from Tazuna's house, Naruto, Anko, and Tazuna's family stood at the edge of the water. Naruto began the seals. By the time he was finished, a small crowd had gathered around them. Slapping his hand down on the surface of the water, he shouted, "SEA splitting technique." A great line of energy made its way into the water from Naruto's hand. Slowly, the sea began to move apart until a pathway, 10 feet across, had formed. Not minding their shocked expressions, Naruto grabbed Anko's hand and dragged her down the path. Shouting a quick goodbye to Tazuna, the ninja began to sprint down the seemingly never-ending path into the sea. As they walked down the path that looks like it was something from the Bible, Anko and Naruto, though their minds set on the goal, retrieving the legendary demon sword, the monstrous display of power of the split sea, and the aquatic life that passed by them, seemingly interested how two mere humans could penetrate so deep into their underwater world. After a while, Anko was unable to see, so they lit the torches with a quick katan jutsu. According to Kyubi, they were about 4 hours away from the temple. Continuing at their pace was tiring, but walking would be too slow. They noticed that as soon as they were deep enough, the sea began to close behind them. Finding a solution to this problem could prove troublesome, but they put that out of their minds. Through the sides of the path, all manner of large sea creatures were visible to them. From schools of fish to monstrous sharks, they saw what looked to be them all. 4 hours later, a giant temple came into view. The monstrous door was all that was visible through the darkness, but just from that they could say that it was gigantic. The door was around 100 feet tall and 10 feet wide. As per Kyubi's instruction, Naruto cut his palm and smeared it on the door. The blood was absorbed before a great rumbling was heard. A split appeared in the door before it slowly opened. Shining their torches in the great hall, they saw the insides of a castle. Great beams lined the walls, and the ceiling was shrouded in darkness. Their steps echoed as they stepped in. The floor rumbled once again, before the door closed once more. He felt Anko grab his hand, before they began to move further. For some reason, Naruto felt completely at home here. He put it up to the fact that he was merging with Kyubi, and this used to be one of Kyubi's homes. When they came to the great staircases, they began to trek even further into the earth. Down and down they went, until the stairs finally ended. There in front of them was a door of almost the same size as the entrance. Carved onto it was a picture of Kyubi, with 2 glowing rubies as the eyes. Once again Naruto smeared his blood, and the door opened. There, on the raised platform in the center of the room, was Soanga. It was a double-edged straight sword, with a hilt made of bone. At the hilt's end was a purple jewel. The jewel was a perfect sphere, and glowed with an inner power. The aura of power it radiated only grew larger with each step they took towards it. Motioning for Anko to stay back, Naruto approached alone. Stepping up next to the blade, he placed his hand on the hilt. Naruto felt a small sting on his palm, before the jewel on the end began to glow. He felt his hand pull the blade from the stone, before he regained control of himself. Before he had time to ask the fox about what happened, he felt something guiding his hand. Letting himself give in, he was led through an intricate pattern of slashes and thrusts. Each strike grew in speed and complexity before it stopped, leaving 2 breathless humans. "Fox, what the hell was that?" The fox responded with traces of amazement in his voice. "It seems the blade has bonded to you." That was a little confusing. "Bonded? What do you mean bonded?" The fox seemed a little bit irritated when it answered. "I mean that its consciousness has been bound to yours. When you fight, it can guide your hand." "You mean it control my actions?" "Partially, but it also obeys your commands. Think of it like this. You pick the target, and what to do to them, such as disarm, knock out, or kill. Then the blade will take control, and fight the battle for you." Naruto was both shocked and impressed. This would have come in handy when he was fighting Zabuza. His musing was broken by Anko's voice. "Naruto, what the hell just happened?" Looking over at her, he explained everything about the blade's bonding. When he had finished, she shared the same reactions that he had. "That's incredible." Naruto nodded at her. "That it is. But now we have a problem. How in the hell do we get out of here?" Anko looked sheepish, and scratched the back of her head. Before she could say anything, the fox spoke up. Kit used the bubble. Bubble? What the hell are you talking about? It's a protective bubble that brought whatever humans met with me here, back to the surface. It was one of my more brilliant ideas. And no, I will not tell you how it works. It is located in the entrance hall. Grumbling a little, Naruto relayed the fox's message to Anko, and they made their way to the entrance hall. Sounga rested on Naruto's back in the sheath that had been found on the far wall. Once they stepped into the circle that was painted on the floor of the hall, Naruto said, I wish to be returned to shore. After that, a bubble with a gold tint rose up and closed around them. Once the door opened, it began to float out into the sea quickly to prevent the flooding of the hall. Going in the bubble was slow, and Anko curled up in Naruto's arms before she fell asleep. Once they had reached the beach, the bubble popped. Carrying Anko bridal style past whoever had stayed up this late, he went to Tezuna's. Looking at the moon in the sky, he deduced that it was around 2 in the morning. Opening the door of their temporary home, Naruto laid Anko down on her bed. Before he left, however, she had latched onto his right arm. After deducing that her grip was inhumanly strong, he placed his blade next to the bed, and curled up next to her. Feeling her snuggle into him, he closed his eyes and drifted into unconsciousness. The next morning, Naruto had his arm around Anko, who was now draped over him. Marveling at how well they fit together, he felt her snuggle further into him. With her head under his chin, he was content to lie there and inhale her scent. It was another hour before she fully awoke. When she did, she just laid there for a few minutes before she looked up at him. Closing the distance between them, she locked her lips with his before she pulled back. Naruto had his eyes closed as he marveled at the feeling of her lips on his. They were silky smooth and slightly moist with a hint of dango on them. A small giggle broke him from his musing. Was it really that good? Naruto just smirked at her before he answered, I think I'll need another before I decide. Mimicking his smirk, she did just that. This one lasted longer than the previous one, and was filled with more passion. After they pulled apart, Naruto said, I have to say that it was definitely that good. Once again she snuggled down into him before saying, That's good, because we'll be doing that more often. We're taking today off so we can stay like this for a few hours. Naruto had no objections to either of her statements, and they stayed there for 2 hours before the family knocked on the door. Yelling for them to come in, they watched as they blushed after they saw them in bed together. Tezuna was the least affected, so he told them to meet downstairs. After they did so, they proceeded to walk down to the living room. Throwing out a greeting, they waited for the family to speak. Tezuna spoke first. When did you two get back? We tried waiting for you, but it got too late for us. Naruto waved him off. It's alright, old man. We didn't get back until early in the morning, and before you asked, the mission was a success. However, I cannot allow you to look at my heirloom. They seemed disappointed, but they let it pass. It was Tsunami who spoke up now. How long will you be staying, Naruto-kun? Looking over at his sensei, they exchanged a look before he answered. We'll stay for today, but we're going to leave tomorrow, and take our time getting back to the village. They seemed to accept this, and their day of relaxing went by without a hitch. The next morning was filled with goodbyes, Tiri and Inari's case, before they set out. Walking hand in hand, they chatted about insignificant things, content to simply be together. The rest of the week passed in similar fashion, before they saw the gate of Konoha in the distance. After passing the guards, they made their way to the Hokage's office while people stopped and stared as they passed. They arrived at the tower with no problems, and they made their way to his office. Opening the door, they saw the old man with his nose buried in an Ika book. When he looked up and saw them, he tried to hide the book from Anko, but he didn't succeed. A few seconds later, the Hokage was crying over the shreds of his beloved book. Wiping away his tears, greetings were exchanged. Dropping the bag of money on his desk, Naruto said, Mission accomplished. At the old man's look he added, Both of them. Sarutobi nodded at him, and asked if he could see it. After Naruto released the invisibility jutsu that concealed the blade, he laid it on the desk. When Sarutobi reached out for it, Naruto slapped his hand away. Explaining about the spirit within, and why no one but he could wield it, a silence came over the room while the Hokage processed the information. Once he had regained his bearings, Sarutobi congratulated them on their success, and warned Naruto against misusing his new powers. Not affected in the least, Naruto replied, Don't worry, old man. I've got 4 anchors to keep me grounded. The older man raised an eyebrow at that, before asking who they were. Well, there are you, Iruka-sensei, Kyubi, and Anko-chan here. At the last he had wrapped his arms around Anko, and held her close. The man had paled at the thought of Kyubi teaching this child, but then he smiled at the last name and at Anko's blush when he held her. Seeing his reaction to Kyubi, Naruto began to explain about why Kyubi had attacked Konoha. After that, the old man seemed to age before their eyes as he let out a deep sigh. He truly had made a mistake in training Orochimaru. Sarutobi blamed himself for everything that his former pupil had done. He believed that he should have been able to see and stop Orochimaru before he gained the power he now held. And all those people that he killed or tortured, the woman in front of him especially, was his fault. Naruto's question about his health broke him from his brooding. After assuring them that he was fine, he dismissed them. Walking out of the tower, the two decided to relax with some dango. However, any plans to relax were ruined as they ran into the now split Team 7. Schooling his face into a neutral mask, he watched them with a wary eye. Sasuke was glaring at him, and after she had looked at the Uchiha, Sakura glared too. After seeing Anko pat her knee, Kakashi paled and backed away a little. Apparently the Uchiha was angry about something, and whatever it was Naruto didn't care. Musing, he thought that the little bitch was angry that he got special training and he didn't. Mentally shaking his head, he waited for the Uchiha to make the first move. Why do you get special training, dope? His question was structured more as a demand, but that didn't matter. Coolly, he raised an eyebrow at the now short boy, while Kyuubi and his mental self congratulated him on not blowing up. You say that I'm the dope, and you can't even see through a mask. Either I'm a very good actor, or you're just an idiot. I've never been a dope. Sasuke growled at him, and was visibly restraining himself from charging at Naruto. Let him come, Naruto thought. Ah, he said, in a very mocking voice. Is little Sasuke upset? It would appear that was the last straw. Sasuke charged at him with his fist cocked back. Naruto smirked as the punch was directed at his face. Very calmly, Naruto diverted the punch off track with a swift snap with the back of his hand, and over to the right. He followed up with a quick stabbing motion with his outstretched hand into Sasuke's throat. Sasuke stumbled back into Sakura, who helped keep him steady as he tried to get a breath in. After a few moments of violent sputtering, he regained his ability to breathe. Seeing that her crush was alright, she almost charged at Naruto. The glare infused with killing intent from Anko stopped the pink-haired fangirl dead in her tracks. A few moments later, Sasuke charged at him again. Naruto, drawing back a clenched fist, drove the offending appendage into the Uchiha's solar plexus. This time, Sasuke had the breath knocked out of him as he flew back several feet and fell back in a rather undignified manner. His face flushing in anger, he leapt to his feet and charged again. As he did so, Naruto, apparently ignoring him, turned to the purple-haired jounin still sitting at the dango stand and asked Anko to grab him a stick of dango from the store 20 feet away from him. Knocking Sasuke back again, he began to taunt him as a small crowd gathered. You're pathetic, Sasuke, and I can't believe I ever considered you a rival. All of that training with Kakashi obviously hasn't done you any good. The now completely enraged boy tried again and again to hit him, but he could never manage it. He was completely lost in his rage as Naruto began munching on some dango as they fought. After finishing his dango, Naruto began to get bored. It would appear that the changes Kyuubi had made him much faster. And why was it that on the battlefield, Sasuke dropped his emotionless mask and gave in to his anger? In a fight was the one place you needed to be cool and collective the most. He really needed to thank Anko for those lessons. Taking a look at the now exhausted and thoroughly embarrassed Uchiha, he watched as he tried to get up again. The boy had tried so hard to hurt Naruto, he had exhausted all of his reserves. Motioning to Anko that he was done, they began to walk away. But before they got too far, Naruto shouted, "Bye-bye, Sasuke." Chuckling as Anko led them into her apartment, Naruto began to look around. Everything was neither overly orderly nor chaotic, but a fine line between the two. Everything was of greater quality than in his apartment, he observed as he moved through it. But there was something puzzling him. Why are we here? His answer came in a completely casual tone. You're moving in with me. Welcome to your new home. That was a big shock. You want me to move in with you? Anko nodded at him. Why not? The place you call a home is disgusting, although it's not your fault. And we're together now, aren't we? The last part was said with a cute pouty voice, and a woman's ultimate technique. The puppy eyes no jutsu. Naruto struggled to resist, but as all men did, he crumbled under the might of the puppy eyes jutsu. Alright. But I'm going to pay for all of my stuff and half of the rent too. Anko nodded at him. Of course you can. But that fight with the Uchiha took longer than I would have liked. I mean, it's already late, and I want to go to bed. She grabbed his hand as he said that he'd take the couch. Nonsense. The bed is big enough for both of us, and we've already slept together. Nodding at her statement, he allowed himself to be led into Anko's pitch-black room. After he asked why it was so dark, Anko said, I covered the windows in case I got back from a mission during the day and I wanted to sleep. After getting into her bed, they snuggled into each other and drifted off. The week passed by with no real trouble. Anko had signed him up for the Chunin exams, where he would be forced to team up with them. There was only 3 weeks before the exams began, and Naruto was going to be ready. Naruto had not seen either of his former teammates since he had beaten Sasuke into the ground, and Naruto was very content with that. Their schedule was broken by a Chunin summoning them to the Hokage's office. Once they had arrived, Sarutobi began to speak. "I'm sorry to interrupt your training, but there is a mission that requires your special services, Anko-chan." Taking the folder, the pair looked at the picture of a fat man dressed in expensive clothing. "That is Denzura Haru, a daimyo of Rice Country. He has been overly taxing the people of the rice, and those people have requested that we take him out. I've called you Anko, because this is your specialty, and it wouldn't hurt for Naruto-kun to get some more field experience. According to our information, he has hired guards. There are 10 in all. Some of them are Chunin and perhaps even Jounin level. This is a B or possibly A rank mission." Anko went into mission mode and said, "When do we leave?" After telling them to leave as soon as possible, Sarutobi let them leave. Once they were outside, Anko turned to her apprentice. "We're going to grab supplies now. We'll need a few extra kunai, and some special pills just in case. While we're there, we'll grab a few ration bars for the journey." Proceeding to the store, they did just that. After getting supplies, Naruto checked his equipment. Kunai, shuriken, explosive tags, soldier pills, blood pills, all check. After making sure that Soanga was well wrapped and secure, they set out. The journey to Rice was swift and silent, and 4 hours later, they came upon the daimyo's mansion. Compared to the villages they had seen on their way there, it was gigantic. The poverty these people were experiencing reminded him of Wave before Gato had been eliminated. Inwardly chuckling at the parallels of him restoring 2 countries to their former prosperity, he focused on the mansion. 2 of the guards were at the gate, and the rest were in the house. They were most likely split between the mansion's 2 floors. Walking up to the gates, a quick Senjutsu silenced both of the guards. Their assumptions were proven correct as they encountered 4 guards on the first floor. Each was dispatched quickly as they were all genin level. Proceeding to the second floor, they saw the remaining 4 guards. These were obviously more experienced if the scars and their way of moving were any indication. Anko signaled Naruto to take the 2 on the right, while she would take the left, which held a Jounin, if his chakra levels were correct. After they had split apart, Naruto watched his opponents as he unsheathed Soanga. The younger one charged at him, and was quickly decapitated. The older one, who obviously had more experience, calmly unsheathed his own sword. Staring each other down, Naruto's enemy's patience ran out first, and he charged. The first strike was blocked, before Naruto pushed his blade away. Giving the blade more control, Naruto entered a trance-like state. Each strike was parried in an intricate dance of death. Before long, it was obvious that the other man was tiring. His movements became slower, and when Naruto spotted an opening, he shoved his blade into the man's kidneys. The man was dead within a few moments. Turning around, Naruto saw Anko standing over the bodies of her opponents with a small smile on her face. Adopting a smirk, Naruto said, "I know I'm amazing, you don't need to say it." Smirking in return, Anko replied, "I wasn't going to say it, but right now we've got a mission to finish." Nodding at her, they entered the daimyo's bedroom. Looking at the fat piece of shit, which was now trembling on the floor, Naruto summoned fire snakes with the Senjutsu. A few minutes of agony later, the daimyo was dead, and the assassins were on their way home. Once they were a good distance away, they set up camp for the night. The next afternoon they were back at the village. Reporting the mission success to the Hokage, the pair began to train once more. Naruto had been a little shaken up by the killing, but a few comfort sessions with Anko cleared that up nicely. The month passed quickly, with no other distractions. Naruto was now a calm, collected man. He radiated an aura of confidence mixed with power. He no longer wore weights, as he had made it to 1,000 pounds. Their relationship was now out in the open, and those who found out about it were disgusted that the demon had a girlfriend. The rest, meaning the Hokage, were ecstatic about them. The now official couple simply brushed off the remarks, and carried on. Finally, it was the morning of the Chunin exams. Anko had told him about the true purpose of the exam that morning as they lay in bed. She said that it was against the rules to tell him, but she didn't really care. Arriving at the entrance of the building where the first exam was taking place, he passed by his teammates without a second glance. Once they were on the second floor, he noticed a small crowd. Apparently they did not notice the genjutsu on the sign. If they could not tell that, then they really didn't deserve to be shinobi. Walking past them, he heard Sasuke's smug voice ring out. "Remove the genjutsu over the door, and let us through." The idiot obviously didn't know anything about this test or the set of stairs located down the hall. He sighed as the Chunin charged at Sasuke before both were stopped by a kid in a green leotard. He was so disgusted by the kid's outfit that he took no notice of the conversation and fight that followed. After Sasuke had rejoined him, Naruto began to speak. You really are an idiot, you know that? The boy had a look of anger and slight confusion on his face, so Naruto decided to explain. This test was to get rid of the hopeless cases. If you didn't have to always be the center of attention, then we would have had fewer enemies to contend with. And they call me the dope? Shock and embarrassment were covered up by Sasuke's scowl before they arrived at the waiting room. Leaning up against the wall, Naruto began to scope out the competition. None of the teams were of any interest until he saw the Sand team. A small redhead radiated killing intent and demonic chakra. QBD recognized this guy's scent? He took a big whiff and waited for the fox's answer. That is definitely the Ichibi, Shikaku. Naruto thought upon this most unusual development. It would seem that this exam has just gotten more interesting. If the fox could have nodded, it would have. Yes, it has. You'd better watch your back. Their talk was interrupted by a white-haired boy with glasses coming over. He introduced himself as Kabuto, and began to talk about the exam and his nin cards. Not really focusing on the requests of the other genin, Naruto focused in on this guy's scent. He literally reeked of snake, and that was not a comforting thought. The information he had gathered, and the way he had failed the exam 7 times made him suspicious in Naruto's book. He would take care to warn the Hokage about this boy. His almost one of Orochimaru's. Thoughts about his warnings were interrupted as a sound genin tried to punch Kabuto for saying that their village was weak. At first glance it would seem that the punch missed, but Naruto's ears picked up the sound waves that came from the boy's arm. His suspicions were confirmed when Kabuto fell down on one knee. Showing off, huh? His words were not sufficient to typically get that response. That means this is a setup then, were Naruto's thoughts as he processed the information available to him. So this new village is associated with the snake Sannin. The door suddenly slammed open as a man in a leather coat similar to Naruto's own barged in and yelled at the sound nins. After telling them to pick a number and sit where the number stated, he swept up to the front of the room. When they sat, Naruto noticed that he was behind both Sasuke and Sakura, only listening with half an ear as Ibiki explained the rules. They all started with 10 points, each wrong question lost them a point, each time they were caught cheating, and 2 points were deducted. Anyone caught 5 times was thrown out, along with his or her teammates. The 10th question would be given out after 45 minutes had passed. Naruto just got the answers from Kyuubi before deciding that a nap was in order. When he woke up, he noticed that Ibiki was just about to give the 10th question. The man explained that if you took the question and failed, you would never be able to take the exam again. After that, hands began to rise, and before he knew it, only 72 people were left. Looking forward as Sakura began to slowly raise her hand, he pulled out his spare kunai and flung it at her. It went straight towards the girl's hand, scratching it slightly and drove deep into the desk. Everyone spun around to look at him after Sakura let out a scream. As she looked back at him, a terrified look on her face, Naruto decided to speak in a very cold voice, releasing about a jounin's worth of killing intent with it. Everyone save Gaara and the instructor shuddered, and some of the weaker genins passed out. I will not be failed because of your weakness, Haruno. She flinched at his tone before she tried to explain in a pain-filled voice. I don't want you to kill me if you get stuck as a genin forever. Naruto's tone took on a scathing quality. If you would use whatever is behind that gigantic forehead of yours, you would see. This man holds no power over the other villages. He cannot prevent anyone from taking the test again. You're supposed to be the brainiac, why did I have to spell it out for you? The now humiliated girl tried to stutter an excuse before Ibiki said that the test was still going on. After no one else quit, he said that they all passed. Sakura, in another moment of stupidity, asked why they had passed. Naruto once again explained in a very scathing voice. If you knew anything about being a chunin, you would know the answer. When she still didn't understand, further humiliating her, Naruto went on. Being a chunin means making life or death choices on a day-to-day basis. If you are unable to make these decisions, you cannot be a chunin. Ibiki nodded at his explanation, and explained it in further detail to those who still didn't understand. After all had been explained, Naruto felt Anko coming closer. A few seconds later, she burst through the window and hung up her sign as she said, "There's no time to celebrate maggots. I'm Mitarashi Anko, the proctor for the second exam. Meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp at Training Ground 44. After the others had left, Naruto walked up and gave Anko a kiss. Your entrance wasn't what I thought it would be. She looked shocked at this as Naruto explained. Well, I mean there were no explosions or other like things, and you didn't even use any killing intent. What happened to the weeks of planning you put into this? Anko looked sheepish as she answered. Well, this was all I could come up with. Naruto raised his hands in exasperation. Next time, let me do the planning for entrances and the like. I was a master prankster after all. After nodding her agreement, they began to kiss again. A slight cough broke them apart, and they saw Ibiki standing there. After that, Anko introduced Naruto and the torture and interrogation specialist to each other. Both watched each other for a second, taking in the similarities in dress before they smiled and shook hands. Turning towards Anko, he spoke. So you finally got yourself a boyfriend, huh? He raised his eyes suggestively before he was smacked upside his head. Recovering from her little embarrassment, Anko replied, Yes, I have, and he's perfect. Ibiki raised his eyebrows in shock. Anko nodded at the unspoken question. Yes, he's perfect, and we understand each other. But right now, I need to prepare my speech for tomorrow. You left far too many of them, and I want to try and scare a few into quitting before the second exam. Ibiki chuckled at that, and both parties began to leave. Naruto, however, remembered something, and went over to Ibiki. Pulling him aside, he spoke. Please alert the Hokage to a possible spy. That Kabuto guy is very suspicious, and he reeks of a certain snake. Ibiki nodded in shocked understanding before they parted ways. The second exam was tomorrow, and Naruto couldn't wait. He'd show everyone how powerful he truly was, and how weak the other genin in this exam were except for a certain red-haired container. The 49 genin who had passed the first Chunin promotion exam were informed by the instructor Torture Shinobi that the second of the Chunin exams would take place in an enormous training area dubbed for the exam the Forest of Death. A 5-kilometer stretch of forest filled with traps, poisonous creatures, monsters and countless other dangers, not to mention that there were other shinobi in the forest trying to stop them or worse. The aim of the exam was to take 2 scrolls, a heaven scroll and its counterpart, the earth scroll, to the tower at the center of the Forest of Death in order to pass the exam. At the start of the exam, each 3-man genin team would be given one of 2 scrolls, and the object of the exam was to survive the 5 days in the perilous environment and acquire the other scroll by any means necessary. Including killing other genin in the forest, anything was allowed in this exam. However, the exam, which could end the lives of a number of genin, was scheduled for tomorrow morning. In the meanwhile, Naruto was at a certain ramen stand, eating more than was humanly possible, and certainly more than is good for him. Hey Naruto, that's your 15th bowl of miso ramen, you should cut down a little, laughed I.M., the pretty ramen store girl. She stood at 5 feet 6 inches, her hair, raven black and dark-colored eyes. I know, but most shops won't let me in and I can't be bothered to kill the owners to get in, so I have to eat here, replied Naruto, finishing the last of his ramen with a swift gulp. I.M. looked a little sad at that. She and her father were really hoping the villagers would see Naruto for what he was, a kind, aspiring young ninja, instead of what was sealed inside of him, the almighty 9 tails, Kyubi no Kitsune-sama. And Kyubi made me write that, help. Placing down his last ramen bowl with the enormous pile, he gave a satisfied sigh. That's better. Well, I'll see you later. Tell the old man I said hi, said Naruto as he pulled out the necessary money for his meal. Giving I.M. a brief smile, he walked off to do some last-minute training before the second exam. He needed to work on his swordsmanship before the exam. I heard that, Naruto, roared the ramen stand owner from the kitchen. Naruto laughed at that and leapt on top of the nearest buildings and ran across the rooftops towards Training Area 6, a small, virtually deserted field where one could train alone and peacefully. Time skip, 3 hours. Naruto had been practicing various sword stances and practicing the basic sword movements. So far he'd done 10,000 horizontal slices, 10,000 diagonal cuts, and 10,000 cuts while spinning in the air, to practice aerial attacks. However, using the soanga for such a long period left him drained. His muscles were straining to the max, his arms cramping, and sweat dripping down his muscular body, obviously. His usual leather coat lay some 30 feet away, crushing some nearby plants with its immense weight. Screw this rest, announced Naruto, wiping the sweat from his golden blonde locks and his whisker-marked cheek. He plopped down lightly onto the ground, his breath labored. He lay there for some time, and between one thought and the next he drifted off to sleep. Inside the mindscape, Naruto, groggily looking at his surroundings, found himself in a dank underground sewer, the pathways inside his mind which led to the seal, and behind the seal was the fox. Damn Kyubi, I wonder what he wants. Why couldn't he just have talked through our link? This better not take too long, muttered Naruto, brushing back a stand of his blonde locks and pushing himself up. Quickly running through the sewer pathways, left, right twice, and forward the rest of the way after roughly 10 minutes of mind time. And I'll think I'll call the passage of time in Kyubi's mindscape that. He found himself in front of the immense, chilly atmosphere of Dark Hall, its sides and ceiling far from sight. The absence of light and the thick tendrils of smoke along with the fox's aura made this part of Naruto's mind a truly frightening place. At the end of the enormous hall, Naruto observed the nine-tailed fox from its seal, its eyes filled with its usual bloodlust. He truly hated this place. In Naruto's opinion, the darkness was a representation of his own fear. Ignoring the feeling of the dark hallway, he quickly walked towards the seal and the cage. "It took you long enough," Kit grunted, Kyuubi towering over the bare-chested teen from its great height. "Kyuubi, you know I don't like this place. If you need to talk, then just use our mental link," muttered Naruto in response, shuddering slightly from the chill. He'd almost forgotten how much he hated this place. The darkness, the emptiness, and the ever-present decaying emotions of his past which bombarded Naruto every time he visited Kyuubi. "Don't be such a wuss, Kit. I called you here for a reason." So what is it?" asked Naruto, his cerulean eyes staring into Kyuubi's fiery red orbs, which didn't look as they normally did. True, they had set aside their differences for the time being, but whenever he talked to the fox, his bloodlust to devour the blonde was obvious. However, this time his eyes were uncertain, maybe even the faintest trace of fear. "We have some major problems, Kit. There's something seriously wrong with this seal," growled Kyuubi. At the mention of the seal, Naruto felt a trickle of fear. What was wrong with it? As if reading his unspoken thought, the nine-tailed bijou replied. "Look at the seal, Kit. It's starting to fray." Naruto looked at the small, intricate seal stuck to the Kyuubi's cage, and to Naruto's shock, the seal was indeed fraying and disappearing, though very slowly. "Now look inside the cage," ordered Kyuubi, moving back slightly. Naruto, though hesitantly, moved forward to look inside the cage, and what he saw disturbed him more than the seal. One of the Kyuubi's tails was starting to fade away. Perhaps a tenth of one of the fox's tails was gone. Also, small patches around its front legs were also beginning to fade. "What the hell?" gasped Naruto, taking a step back, his eyes wide with shock, tripping back onto his rear. "Kyuubi, what the hell is happening to you and the seal?" "The seal is slowly disappearing and absorbing my chakra into your body, and as my chakra leaves me, it is broken down and converted into your blue chakra inside your chakra coils. Eventually I'll be absorbed into you and die, then you'd become Kyuubi," replied the fox. Not waiting for a reply, he continued. "However, here's the problem for you, Kit. The seal is unraveling before it should, and much faster than expected. It was not supposed to start until you were 20 or so. Even with your training, your body cannot handle my power, and you'd be ripped to shreds because of massive chakra overload. If we cannot stop this process, both of us will be dead within 3 years. So what can we do to stop it, Fox?" asked Naruto, fear evident in his voice, scared that he'd die relatively soon. His life was only just starting to take a turn for the better too. "I don't know, but we'll need a seal master like the 4th Hokage to stand a good chance at fixing this. However, in the meantime, I can slow down the transfer of chakra process. Now, as you know, when you borrow my power, you temporarily convert my power into your chakra. But now the process is permanent, so as long as you don't try to take any of my chakra to fight, I can focus on maintaining the seal. Meaning that you'll have to fight without me if you want to make it to your next birthday, Kid. But at the very least I can heal you, but it will be much slower than before," replied the demon, explaining to Naruto the seriousness of their predicament. "Thanks for telling me, bastard fox. Don't worry too much. I'm strong to survive without you, and will definitely fix the seal. There's no way a bijou or its container are gonna die so easily," announced Naruto, and though there was doubt and fear in his eyes, Kyuubi felt a little better. "Good, now wake up and train, so you can pass that little exam," muttered the fox as Naruto walked away from the cage and the dark cavernous hall in the boy's mind. "It's best that the snake woman doesn't know about this," Naruto added Kyuubi as Naruto disappeared back to the real world. Hi came a near silent response. Gasping heavily, Naruto heavily landed upon the ground, his knee cracking the earth slightly as he impacted with the ground. "It's finally complete. With this I can definitely beat down everyone in the exams." Looking at the vast damage his new sword-based technique had caused, it was truly impressive. A vast amount of trees had been cut to shreds, and the surrounding earth scorched. Stabbing his demon blade into the ground, he used it as a crutch to help himself to his feet. This new technique really used up a vast amount of chakra. "With my current abilities I should be able to shoot this off 3 or 4 times before I pass out from chakra exhaustion," muttered Naruto to himself, beads of sweat trickling down his body. Slowly straightening himself, he brushed back his golden blonde locks, which had now turned dark red at the roots. Casting his deep cerulean eyes heavenwards, the sun had been roosted in the sky for several hours now, and the sky still had a faint crimson tint to it. The sky was remarkably beautiful, silhouetted behind Konoha's buildings, with the Hokage monument jutting upwards in the distance, the cliff side on which the 4 faces of Konoha's rulers, the 4 Hokage's enormous stone faces, resided, their stone eyes gazing towards the hidden village to which the 4 fire shadows had dedicated to ruling and protecting, of which only one of them remained, the third, also known as the Professor. His official title is Sandaime Hokage-sama. And whoops, lost track for a moment there. Wiping the sweat from his brow, Naruto wrenched the Soanga from the ground, sheathing the long, double-edged sword into a leather sheath that ran diagonally down his back. The bone hilt and guard stuck up behind his right shoulder. The jewel on the hilt gleamed faintly in the early morning sunlight. Using some white wrapping cloth, he wrapped the entirety of the sword, sheath and hilt, obscuring it from view. After all, he couldn't have someone accidentally touching it after all. The second Chunin exam begins in a few hours. I should head back to Anko-chan's place and get ready, announced Naruto quietly to himself as he quickly departed the ruined training area, and running swiftly in a slightly crouched stance, with his arms back, tradition ninja stealth running, he quickly crossed several training areas, swiftly covering the distance, running along the rooftops. Leaping from building to building, he soon reached Anko's apartment. Landing, he made virtually no noise as his feet touched the ground. Reaching into one of his pockets, he extracted 3 keys, which he used to unlock the door. Anko had soon added extra locks to her home after Naruto had moved in, as well as a few subtle traps, a wise precaution as it turned out, as 3 male civilians had tried to break into her apartment, not long after he'd moved in with her. Apparently the thought of the demon brat and snake whore commingling and having a taste of happiness set their imaginations and hate aflame. Flashback, General POV. The moon was brightly stationed in the night sky, a few stars scattered across the sky. It was somewhat cloudy, causing shadows to claw amongst most of the buildings. Amongst the shadows, 3 tall, broad-shouldered men still dressed in their work clothes, quietly as possibly could, converged on Anko's home, keeping to the shadows, walking slowly, not making any noticeable sounds. They were rather good for non-shinobi. Climbing quietly up the L-shaped steel stairs which curved round to a small space in front of her apartment, rather like a balcony which led to the door. The shortest of the 3, a somewhat thicker-built man who was named Sakaya Senji, one of the southern district's locksmiths, crouched down in front of the door, quickly checked out the locks to check for anything booby traps. "Anything there?" whispered the man on the right of Senji quietly, being careful to keep his voice quiet. "Knowing that snake whore, she's probably got something nasty set up," muttered the man on the left. His name was Juan Shinji, the local butcher. Like most men of his profession, he was tall, broad, and foul-tempered. "It seems fine. Looks like she's lax when it comes to her home. Pa, only 3 locks," muttered Senji, smirking. He pulled out 3 thin metal wires from a pocket inside his coat. With practiced ease, he inserted the first wire into the top right of the keyhole, the second in the bottom of the keyhole. Inserting the third wire, a little thicker than the other 2, into the center, then angling the first 2, he made a twisting motion and the first lock unlocked with a faint click. That click was their downfall. It was loud enough to rouse Naruto. With Naruto's demonic enhanced hearing, it sounded like a cannon shot. "Goddamn pricks," Naruto thought to himself, quietly climbing out of bed, doing his best not to awaken the sadistic beauty laying next to him in a curled position. Her face was snuggled into her pillow, a faint smile on her porcelain-colored face, her dark silk-like hair tumbling around her angelic features. He lightly kissed her on the forehead. "I'll be back in a sec, keep the bed warm," said Naruto to the sleeping beauty. Then deftly grabbing a few kunai from his standard equipment pouch which he'd left on the side table next to the bed, he proceeded silently to the hallway, ready to punish the soon-to-be intruders. Meanwhile, the 3 civilians with violence on their minds, Senji the locksmith, Shinji the butcher, and Momoko Rinji the carpenter, silently held their breath as the third key clicked and the door opened, revealing an empty hallway. "We're in luck," grinned Rinji. "They're both still asleep by the sounds of it." "Yeah, let's kill that demon, and then we can have some fun with his horse," snickered the butcher. It was at that moment 2 things occurred. Naruto summoned several small snakes, with acidic venom which slithered towards them. Anko's genjutsu trap triggered, freezing the muscles of the body, including the vocal muscles of the 3 intruders. Suddenly finding themselves to move or speak, the 3 men suddenly found themselves in a very bad situation. The genjutsu that had trapped them had been activated when her door had been opened without the use of the 3 specific keys. In this case, the door was picked. At this point, Naruto deactivated the illusion that had hidden him from their sight. He'd only been a few feet from them and had heard them quite clearly. Scarcely had he kept his anger in check as he appeared before them, seemingly out of thin air. His teeth bared and his slitted, cerulean eyes stared at them. With the poor light, all they could see were his fangs and his piercing eyes glaring out from the darkness. "I don't care what pathetic reason you thought up," said Naruto in a dark, intimidating tone, "and I don't care. But I'll punish you now, you ignorant bastards." Clicking his fingers, 3 sets of eyes darted around wildly, wondering what would happen. They were expecting something terrible and they were not disappointed. 3 dark-scaled snakes, each about 10 to 12 inches long, slithered up their legs, winding around their waists until the 3 snakes were staring eye to eye with the locksmith, the butcher, and the carpenter, who were wide-eyed. Bite them at Naruto's orders. They arched their necks back, revealed their gaping maws, each mouth lined with long, sharp-looking fangs, then bit each of them on the neck, releasing a small spurt of blood from their necks as the venom entered their systems. Within moments they felt a horrid pain spread through their bodies. Like lava was surging through their veins, they collapsed, wanted to scream, but the genjutsu kept the lips sealed tight. My snake's poison is a form of corrosive acid. It will slowly dissolve you from the inside out. The locksmith made a pathetic whimpering noise in his agony, as another wave of pain swept through his body. That's what you get for breaking into our home, intending to kill me and raping my. Pausing, Naruto kicked the butcher, who coughed up blood and another greenish substance. Crouching down to them, Naruto hissed, "It's ignorant fools like you who make our life lonely, painful, unbearable." He raised his fist. It was glowing with his blue chakra. End flashback. Unlocking the door and stepping through, Naruto thought back on that day. Rather sadly, it was ignorant idiots like that who would continue to make his life hard. Dimly, after he gained the Soangan, Naruto had begun to realize that gaining the respect of an entire village that shunned, feared, and hated him would never allow him to be Hokage. This realization had brought great sadness. Now he'd only fight for himself and Anko. Walking down the corridor and turning left, he entered the bathroom, quickly undressing and climbing into the shower. Turning on the hot water, Naruto gave a contented sigh as the water washed away the dirt and sweat from his body, as well as his cares for the day. His muscles relaxed and he felt like he could face a new day. Naruto spent roughly 10 minutes in the shower. As he finished washing his hair, he became aware of being watched. Turning, he saw that once again with some embarrassment that Anko had walked in to give him a towel, however decided to stay for the show. Quickly he grabbed the fluffy towel from her, wrapping it around his waist, covering the essentials. "I wish you wouldn't keep doing that, Anko-chan. It's embarrassing," stated Naruto, his face flushing slightly on his tanned face. "What's it matter, Naruto-chan? It belongs to me now after all," replied Anko, smirking, giving his slim muscular body a good once-over. Naruto's eyebrow rose archly to that statement, but said nothing. He turned to throw his drenched, dirty clothes into the laundry bin. "When you've got dressed, breakfast is ready, so get your arse in the kitchen." "Fine, I'll go get dressed. No peeking this time," he told Anko, pointing a finger at her. Pouting, Anko turned and left the bathroom. "How mean, Naruto-chan," said Anko, in a tone of voice which to Naruto left no doubt she wasn't serious. Going into his room, he shared with Anko, dried himself, sat down on the edge of the bed, picked out his clothes for his exam. He eventually made his choice with a little input from Kyubi on how to look dark and cool. His choice of clothing consisted of a dark red t-shirt, black parachute pants, with dozens of pockets in them with which he could carry more equipment with him for easier use. Over his shirt he wore a sleeveless black trench coat. However, unlike the one he'd worn previously, this jacket wasn't weighted. For footwear he had put on leather boots, which went up slightly past his ankles. The boot's most noticeable feature was that it had a metal plate on the front. He wore his height with the Konoha emblem cut into the metal plate. However, he'd recently replaced the original blue material with a longer black one. His hair was its usual spiky self. However, he'd brushed a few locks over his height, partially hiding part of his face in shadows, to make him look more mysterious. "See, much better, kid," announced Kyubi through the mental link. "I guess," shrugged Naruto, leaving the bedroom. "Time for breakfast. Never enter an exam without a hearty breakfast in you." Apparently Anko had already left, next to his breakfast, which consisted of beef ramen and half a dozen dango. Neither of them were well known for having a wide-ranging palate when it came to food. There was a quick note from Anko scribbled on a piece of paper. "Naruto. Gone to prep exams. Don't be late or else. Anko." Glancing at the clock mounted on the wall opposite him, he nearly choked on one of his dango. He only had 35 minutes till the exam started. Downing his food within a minute, he ran back into the bedroom and grabbed his rucksack filled with various supplies, and after wrapping his sword to keep it hidden from prying eyes, he sheathed it, attached it to his back with the rucksack following soon after. "Well, time to head out," Naruto announced to himself as he left the house, locked the door, and reset the genjutsu trap. Leaping out onto a nearby building, Naruto quickly ran along the rooftops towards the Konoha's training area, nearby which was a vast expanse of tangled forest filled with dangerous creatures, the Forest of Death, the place where the second Chunin exam would take place. It took him roughly 15 minutes to reach the small field in front of the Forest of Death where the other young genin from the various different villages had gathered awaiting instructions on the next exam. Landing lightly amongst a group of grass shinobi, startling several of the other ninja, though the feminine-looking grass nin, with long black hair, seemed to find his comrade's surprise somewhat amusing, if his large, perverse-looking smirk was anything to go by. Naruto sniffed, and felt a chill. "You shouldn't let yourselves be caught off guard, you know," said Naruto, walking away, and though he maintained a calm demeanor, His heart was hammering in his chest. He'd sensed a powerful chakra signal carefully hidden when he'd first arrived. He jumped amongst them to verify, to think that snake bastard was the one he'd been detecting. Pausing about 20 feet away, he took a deep breath and gathered his thoughts. Though he hated to admit it, Orochimaru's disguise was brilliant. By wearing the skin of that grass nin, he was able not only to hide his appearance but also his scent. With his demonic senses, he just about smelled the second scent beneath the deceased grass nin scent. But to a normal ninja, he was completely invisible, just another kid trying to become a chunin. What's that bastard up to? There must be a reason for him coming here to spy. No, maybe something or someone has attracted his attention. Walking onwards, not once looking back, Naruto pondered who might interest him, besides himself, and then suddenly he remembered something Anko had mentioned about her former sensei. One thing about Hibi team is that he had a real obsession for learning new techniques. Sasuke? Naruto's subconsciousness shouted out him. He wants the Sharingan. Turning back to Orochimaru, he saw he was watching the young Uchiha lustfully out of the corner of his eye. Pedophile, he muttered under his breath, and to his amusement the Sanin's eyes flared for a moment. Hey Naruto, over here, yelled Sakura in her high-pitched voice, having finally noticed their strongest and most violent team member Uzumaki Naruto, striding quickly towards them, his blonde hair flowing back, while his front locks shadowed his face, making him look dark and menacing. Sasuke took a step back unconsciously and Sakura paled slightly. Sakura and Sasuke were dressed in their usual clothing. What briefly caught Naruto's attention was that Sasuke's scent was slightly different. It felt darker than the norm. He'd changed apparently. Sakura, Sasuke, said Naruto, standing next to them, giving them a brief nod, but saying nothing else. It was obvious that neither of Naruto's teammates wanted to be anywhere near him. They were frightened of him, plain and simple, though Sasuke would rather die than admit it to Naruto or anybody else for that matter. Ichinin, grunted Sasuke, pointedly ignoring him, in a very immature fashion, while Sakura hovered hesitantly between the two, hoping to keep Naruto placid. Hi Naruto, it's good to see you. I'm sure we'll do fine on this exam, Naruto briefly turned to her, his cold mask, reserved for his team and most of Konoha, firmly locked in place. Sakura felt like a wilted shrub in a storm, with her blonde teammate glaring down at her with those deep, cold eyes. It was like looking into a tsunami. You'll be fine as long as you both stick near me. So you'll protect us? Asked Sakura, feeling a little relieved. With her limited, and all honesty pathetic skills, she wouldn't last long without someone to protect her. No, replied Naruto. Sakura's face faltered. Naruto continued with, I'd kill them before they could take a single step, so my earlier statement remains true. Sakura laughed nervously, while Sasuke silently fumed. How dare that bastard? I'm an Uchiha, a descendant of noble blood. He's just a commoner, looking down on me. I'll show him his secrets. I'll find them and take them after all I have. Sasuke's mental rant was cut short by Naruto slightly shoving him on the shoulder. Sasuke, the instructors are here. Pay attention. Frowning in response, Sasuke half turned as though planning to retort, but wisely decided against it. Indeed, the instructors had arrived. The instructors for this exam were a young chunin with bandages wrapped around the middle of his face, that hid his nose and upper lip. His eyes and hair were dark and he was dressed in the standard chunin uniform. The second instructor was a slightly older female jounin, Mitarashi Anko, a member of the ANBU interrogation squad, and rumor had it was in a relationship with his blonde teammate. At first he hadn't believed it, but seeing the two kiss with his own eyes had confirmed it at the first exam. Anko was dressed in a slightly provocative outfit which consisted of a short brown skirt that just passed her thighs, showing off her long, well-shaped legs. She also wore a fishnet-style shirt, popular among male shinobi. However, in this case the shirt showed off her well-firm, decent-sized cleavage, and over that she wore a full-length brown trench coat. Cut in the same style as Naruto's, though unlike Naruto's it had long sleeves which Anko used to hide an assortment of small, usually poisoned weaponry. Sasuke's mental tirade had made him miss the brief explanation and the mission requirements for the second exam. Feeling idiotic that he hadn't listened, Sasuke had intended to ask Naruto, as Sakura was without a doubt too ignorant to fully understand a mission objective. As if reading his mind, Naruto leaned over to him and said quietly, the exam is to get to the center of the Forest of Death. There's a tower there. We have to bring 2 scrolls with us to pass. We get 1 scroll at the start. We have to get our second scroll from another 3-man team. The deadline is 5 days. Oh, and next time pay attention or you'll fall behind, Dobe, said Naruto, smirking at the last sentence, finding the flash of anger mixed with embarrassment highly amusing as it flickered across the arrogant Uchiha's features. Well then, let's go. They're handing out the scrolls now. Alright Gakis, listen up. One at a time, each team come over to the booth to receive your scroll. It will be either a heaven scroll or an earth scroll, and remember shit stains that if you open the scroll you forfeit the Chunin exam, yelled out Anko to the surrounding genin. One by one the teams walked up to the entrance to the Forest of Death, where there was a small booth surrounded by a screen. They'd enter, receive their scroll and hid it amongst one of their teammates, keeping which scroll they had a secret, very prudent as many teams would then know who to hunt in the Forest of Death. After roughly 10 minutes of waiting, it was Team 7's turn to receive either a Heaven Scroll or Earth Scroll from the face-bandaged Chunin. Once stepping into the booth, the Chunin leaned forward from behind the small desk and said in a drawl, business-like tone, "Which of you will carry this Heaven Scroll?" Before anyone could reply, Naruto swiftly snatched the scroll and deposited it into an inside pocket. A vein appeared on Sasuke's forehead. Sakura stood in front of Naruto, pointing a finger at him. "Don't be rude, don't be deciding everything yourself," flared Sakura. Naruto's eyes narrowed and darkened. "Oh, is that so?" Sakura, then remembering who she was talking to, suddenly wilting under his cold glare. Reaching into one of his outside pockets, he pulled out a white scroll with the Japanese kanji for heaven printed upon it. Crouching till he was at eye level with the pink-haired Kunoichi, thrusted the white scroll into her hands. "Fine, you can look after it then, but they'll be targeting you now, instead of me," grinned Naruto a little viciously. Rising to his full height, he then added, "And it stays with you, no giving it back to me, or passing it on to Sasuke. You'll be a target for the next 5 days, aren't you proud?" Sakura paled slightly at the thought of being a target of most of the other shinobi teams. Sticking out her head out the side of the screen, she looked at the other genin, all who suddenly looked rather intimidating when the prospect of being hunted by what seemed like 100 trained killers. Turning back to Naruto, she saw him grin, and he looked down at her and said in a voice that made it abundantly clear that she was less than an insect in Naruto's eyes, "I hate both of you. You're not my nakama, but merely a couple of annoying obstacles that will slow me down without a doubt, so both of you don't make any mistakes. If you mess this up for me." Naruto left it unfinished, turned and walked towards their assigned gate through which they'd enter the Forest of Death. Scary, whistled the Chunin, looking at the frightened Sakura and the slightly intimidated Uchiha. "Damn it, I'm shaking, quit it, body." "His nothing, stop being scared," thundered Sasuke's mind. "His just like." After a brief pause, the two genin followed Naruto as he strode towards their designated entrance gate that would take them into the Forest of Death. Anko was waiting by the entrance, and as Naruto passed her, she leaned forward and gave him a brief kiss on the lips. She whispered something to him, and Naruto smirked and nodded. Moments later, Sasuke and Sakura passed through the gate too. For Team 7, the Chunin's second trial had begun. Time skip, 2 days. The densely packed forest was worse than anything Sakura had expected. It dark, unbearably so. In empty spaces they'd hear roars and hisses from time to time. In such occurrences she'd jump and try to cling to Sasuke, however he'd simply brush her off. There were also the thick tree roots that invaded the pathways in unpredictable places and angles. Sakura frequently found herself falling flat on her face, tripping on the roots with embarrassing regularity. Had she been anything more than a third-rate wannabe ninja, she'd have seen the obvious choice of jumping from tree to tree, like undoubtedly most of the genin would be doing. Without a doubt such a course would have occurred to the other members of Team 7, however Naruto stubbornly stuck to the small paths on the ground for some reasons. Both Sakura and Sasuke would find out why Naruto had chosen the slowest, most troublesome path as averse to the countless other paths. Had they taken the trees, they'd most likely be at the tower already. Eventually it was Sasuke on the evening of their second day within the forest that Sasuke voiced his opinion, or to be more accurate, questioned Naruto's. The three of them were gathered around a small fire eating what Naruto had gotten for them when he'd gone off to look for supplies. It consisted of fish, caught from a nearby stream, berries, and several nutrition bars which Naruto had gotten from a supply bag he'd taken from some rain ninja who'd already be disqualified from the Chunin's second exam. Leaning back, Sasuke turned in Naruto's direction, who was hurriedly scoffing down his food, making a surprising amount of noise. For once he looked more like his own age, instead of the tall, muscular genetic monster he'd become, virtually overnight. Finishing his food with a contented sigh, he leaned back against a tree, and before Sasuke and Sakura's eyes he returned to his emotionless face and usual cold eyes. Though puzzled, they decided not to mention it. "Naruto," said Sasuke, leaning forward slightly. Grunted Naruto, looking in the Uchiha's direction. "Why have we been taking these slow paths, Naruto? It's just a waste of time. We've got to get another scroll before time's run out." "I'm perfectly aware of that, Uchiha. However, because I have you dead weights with me, I need to be careful or you'll end up dead, and me disqualified, so it's necessary to take this safer and used path," replied Naruto in a slightly condescending tone. Jumping to his feet, having enough of Naruto justly deserved superior attitude, Sasuke attacked Naruto again, and just like the last time, he was easily beaten, a quick sidestep followed by a blow to the neck, which left the Uchiha unconscious for the better part of an hour. When he regained consciousness, he spent the rest of the night behind one of the trees sulking about how easily he'd been bested once again. This is so unfair. The dobe is so ahead of me, I have to get stronger. Watching Sasuke sulk with some amusement, he shook his head and took a seat next to the small fire, after adding a little more kindling to the fire. "Ano Naruto, why don't you just use a fire jutsu?" asked Sakura, who was seated with her head rested on top of her knees. Stoking the fire slightly, he replied, "Fire techniques waste a lot of chakra, and there's a possibility that they'd feel me releasing my chakra, and there are a few shinobi in this forest right now that I want to avoid, so I'm doing this manually. You and Sasuke would do well to do the same. Unlike me, you're both at a much greater risk in this test. Try not to die standing." And brushing himself off, he then added, "I'm going to take care of something. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Stay low, and avoid any ninja till then if possible." Then making a two-handed seal, he vanished in a swirl of leaves. Elsewhere in the forest, 3 young genin dressed in gray shinobi uniforms kneeled down in front of a tall grass nin with long black hair and a doll-like face. "Orochimaru-sama, we've followed the Team 7 Konoha team as instructed. It seems that the only threat in the team is the blonde one called Uzumaki. We intend to separate him from the Uchiha and the pink one before executing your plan," said the eldest genin, whose face was hidden behind white bandages, leaving only his right eye visible. Next to him was a medium-height genin with wildly spiky, black hair and wearing an arrogant expression. The other member was a slightly taller girl with long black hair, almost the same length as her body. "Shall we proceed, Orochimaru-sama?" asked Kin. "No, I'll deal with young Uzumaki Naruto. He'd be far too much for you 3 to handle. Just focus on the Uchiha," said the snake Sannin, grinning slightly at Saku's angry expression. "You're dismissed. Attack 1 hour before dawn." "Hi," the 3 Sannin simultaneously vanishing in an instant. Looking towards the sky, the snake Sannin chuckled darkly to himself. "I wonder how well Anko-chan's trained the fox host? Time to prove to another generation who the snake master of the ninja world is. He. Is that right? Oh my?" Elsewhere in the forest, 3 young genin dressed in gray shinobi uniforms kneeled down in front of a tall grass nin with long black hair and a doll-like face. "Orochimaru-sama, we've followed the Team 7 Konoha team as instructed. It seems that the only threat in the team is the blonde one called Uzumaki. We intend to separate him from the Uchiha and the pink one before executing your plan," said the eldest genin, whose face was hidden behind white bandages, leaving only his right eye visible. Next to him was a medium-height genin with wildly spiky, black hair and wearing an arrogant expression. The other member was a slightly taller girl with long black hair, almost the same length as her body. "Shall we proceed, Orochimaru-sama?" asked Kin. "No, I'll deal with young Uzumaki Naruto. He'd be far too much for you 3 to handle. Just focus on the Uchiha," said the snake Sannin, grinning slightly at Saku's angry expression. "You're dismissed. Attack 1 hour before dawn." "Hi," the 3 Sannin simultaneously vanishing in an instant. Looking towards the sky, the snake Sannin chuckled darkly to himself. "I wonder how well Anko-chan's trained the fox host? Time to prove to another generation who the snake master of the ninja world is. He. Is that so?" Orochimaru, upon hearing the voice from directly behind him, he quickly spun, drawing a tanto from a hidden sheath. But before he could attack, his hand was caught in a vice-like grip and the tanto fell to the ground and embedded itself in the earth. "Oh my," growled Orochimaru, surprised that he'd been caught off guard and who'd done it. "Hello, Orochimaru," said Naruto emotionally, tightening his grip, causing Orochimaru to wince slightly. "Whose body is this?" asked the blonde shinobi, calmly drawing Soanga from his sheath. Orochimaru didn't answer that question but instead replied with, "Naruto-kun, it's been a while. How is my old student?" Naruto's eyes bored into the snake Sannin's reptilian eyes, his face in shadow. He replied, "She'll be all the better when I bring her your head." In an instant before he connected, he drew a kunai with his other hand. The Soanga pierced the Sannin's chest, and second later Orochimaru's body turned to mud and splattered over the ground. "Mud clone," muttered Naruto in a flat tone of voice. Something flickered behind Naruto, and Orochimaru had a kunai at Naruto's throat. "Too easy, you disappoint me, Naruto." But before he could kill Naruto, he felt a blade against his own throat. Though Naruto was awkwardly positioned, he could still slit Orochimaru's throat. "Shireni," both simultaneously shouted without any hesitation, slashing the blade against each other's throat. Orochimaru dissolved as another mud clone, and Naruto vanished in a pop of smoke, a shadow clone. Both reappeared out of thin air. Naruto had his Soanga drawn, held low, with a slightly crouched stance. The cape of his long black jacket flared wildly as he gathered his Kage-level chakra. His blue chakra crackled and swirled around him, The ground surrounding him cracked and debris was lifted into the air by his energy. Orochimaru grinned widely and pulled at the flesh mask of the grass nin he was wearing, revealing a reptilian face, pale skin, reptilian yellow eyes, purple markings around his eyes, and a large mouth with large canine teeth, in other words fangs. That impressive chakra, Naruto-kun, as it that sentient sword of yours, allow you to show you mine, chuckled Orochimaru. Looking up, he opened his mouth wide and a large cobra partially crawled out of his mouth. Naruto's eyes widened slightly in surprise. Internal ceiling, he muttered. The snake's mouth opened and a long, guardless katana erupted from its mouth. The snake's Sannin deftly caught it in his hand and got into a stance as the snake disappeared back through Orochimaru's mouth. That's disgusting, Hibi Team. Orochimaru smirked wider at Naruto's comment and replied in a slightly condescending tone. This coming from another hidden snake user. Don't tell me Anko hasn't completely taught you my fighting style as of yet? No, was Naruto's brief reply as he increased his chakra levels slightly. I'll say once again, your chakra, even without Kyuubi, it's quite impressive, a genin with S-rank chakra. But don't forget I am an S-rank Naruto-kun, one truly deserving of the rank, and he released his own chakra, slightly stronger than Naruto's. It was purple in color and gave off a disgusting feel to it. It glowed thickly around him and it cracked the ground around him, showering them both with debris. Their hair and clothing both were flaring wildly as each other's chakra and killer intent blew around them. Let's see your full potential, Naruto-kun, yelled Orochimaru, charging forward, stabbing repeatedly at Naruto with incredible speed. Naruto, using quick steps, dodged every single one, using the guard of his sword to defend. Sweeping his sword from the right, Orochimaru attempted to divide Naruto in two, striking at Naruto's waist. Quickly stabbing his blade down, he narrowly used the Soanga in time to stop the blade. Tilting his sword, then forcefully swinging diagonally up, he forced back the Sannin's Kusanagi and slashed at his chest. Tilting his body to the side and sliding his back leg directly behind him, he effortlessly dodged the blonde Kitsune's attack. Not even pausing an instant, he made another mud clone. Without the use of any hand seals, the mud clone lunged forward. It was skewered by the Soanga. The clone, however, held on tight onto Naruto's wrist. Shit. The snake Sannin appeared in front of him in a blur of speed. His arm pulled back, he thrust a long poison-drenched Kusanagi into Naruto's chest through his chest. The blade erupted out of his back, its end drenched in dark red blood. Naruto's eyes bulged open, coughing up some blood. Wrong one, Hibi Team. Naruto disappeared in puff of smoke. His target was only a Kage Bushin with a basic visual genjutsu over it. The mud clone dispelled itself second later. Moving back, he entered a loose defensive stance, one that allowed him easily shift into a number of different katas, depending on what happened. As the smoke cleared, a human-sized blur shot forward out of the smoke. Orochimaru's eyes widened fractionally as it was a large red-scaled snake moving towards him as though shot out like a cannon. Opening its maw wide open, a condensed ball of fire appeared. The fireball shot forward and exploded outward, barely replacing himself with a Dokenbushin. It then exploded on contact with the snake's fireball. Orochimaru landed on a nearby tree, as he watched the clone poison the snake, forcing it to dispel itself. Feeling Naruto behind him, in mid-downward swing, a large grin appeared on his reptilian face. He smoothly turned and blocked Naruto's Soanga a few inches away from his face. So Naruto-kun, your snakes are capable of elemental attacks. You'll have to tell me about how you did that one of these days, boy. I don't recall a snake of that color or ability within the contract, smirked Orochimaru, in a deceptively pleasant tone. He was in fact afire with curiosity, no pun intended. Naruto's eyes flickered red for an instant, and then sliding forward he forced as much weight onto the sword. Orochimaru barely stopped the blade, then began tensing his muscles in his arm and then twisting his waist and moving his leg back and using his chakra to divert the extra pressure from Naruto's heavy attack into the ground, in this case tree. After steadying himself, he forced back Naruto's sword little by little. The slight shaking of his arm, however, was the only indication that he was having any difficulty pushing back Naruto's sword. Che has got a surprising amount of brute strength. Damn it, come on! Growled Naruto angrily to himself, trying and failing to add more power and weight into his swing. Unfortunately, the Sannin had a sturdy stance now and was diverting the excess power below him to take away the strain. Twisting his body to the left and forcing Naruto's Soanga forward, the young Kitsune lost his balance and fell forward. Orochimaru quickly made several seals, in fraction of a second. Katon, banishing Resplanter. There was a flash of red and Naruto was blasted away by the high-speed fire jutsu. Kyuso. Using chakra to coat his body and placing Soanga between him and the jutsu, he was able to reduce the damage. Unfortunately, being hit at point-blank range had sent him smashing heavily in the ground below. The ground cracked upon the collision. Naruto coughed up blood as he forced himself to stand. He could hear his bones creaking in protest at being used any further. "We're in a lot of trouble here, Kit. We aren't at full strength and the man has some 40 years on you in experience. I'd recommend we leave. But knowing you, I know I'd be wasting my breath," muttered Kyubi to his container as Naruto began gathering more of his Yuki Lace chakra. "Damn straight. Kit, I have a suggestion." "I am listening." "Since this sword has my predecessor sealed inside of it, it has its own chakra, and I wasn't planning on having you use any of this. It is far more dangerous than my own chakra and highly poisonous to anyone other than us." "But poisonous? You want me to inject the chakra into Orochimaru?" asked Naruto. "I haven't even been able to graze him yet with Soanga." "Quit bitching, and try harder. You don't need to tell me twice." Finally getting to his feet, he turned to Orochimaru, who had just jumped from the tree and landing lightly and soundlessly. His long tongue flickered out as if tasting the air, much as his signature would. "Bastard's going easy on me. Find more chances for me to get a fatal hit in." Raising his chakra levels and lacing it with killing intent, he raised his blade and prepared to charge, until Orochimaru raised his hand in a stopping motion. "I had enough of this Kenjutsu match. I wanted to see how far you've come along and what Anko's been teaching you. My style. Let's see what my quick killing style and summonings can do by your hand, Naruto-kun." Fine." Orochimaru switched to only using one hand and Naruto did the same. They glared at each other for a moment, and both made a quick succession of identical seals, each only using one hand. Naruto raised his arm and simultaneously they both shouted out. Mass hidden snake hands. An enormous number of snakes appeared from out of their wrists. Naruto's were a mix of brown and red. Unlike the previous snakes, they had no spikes or distinguishing markings, but nonetheless they had a primal look to them. Whilst Orochimaru's snakes were dark green in color, with a viscous set of jaws and chilling yellow eyes. There was brief pause as a near uncountable number of their snakes burst seemingly from around their wrists, pulling back their arms as if to throw a punch. "Go," ordered Orochimaru calmly. "Kill him dead," roared Naruto, his eyes flickering red again for a moment. The torrent of snakes on both sides surged forward like an arrow in flight. The snakes crashed against each other, biting and crashing against each other, trying to get to their intended targets. Naruto created a single shadow clone. This difficult without hand seals, the copy of Naruto leapt into the air and ran across the back of the snake's convergence, and delivered a powerful axe kick to Orochimaru's shoulder, and sending him back several feet. His eyes narrowed dangerously, and quickly killed the shadow clone by skewering it with his katana. It vanished at a poof of smoke. "TCH, let's get serious, shall we, my snakes?" The snakes surged forward, pushing harder against Naruto's jutsu. Several snakes got past and attacked Naruto, however they were quickly dispatched by a sweep of Soanga. "Orochimaru, I hope you can move properly when using this jutsu?" "Of course, boy, I'm the most skilled user of the hidden snake style in the world. Don't undermine my skills," replied Orochimaru, frowning angrily. They both quickly sidestepped and charged forward, their army of snakes dragged along behind them. The snakes surged around them and shot forward. Some snakes attacked, others defended. Naruto and the Sannin met at the middle, attacking each other with their blades, in a violent flurry of attacks, counters and parries. The snakes on both sides tried to kill them, but the opposing infinite snake hands would block and counterattack before they could poison and kill either Orochimaru or Naruto. They continued to exchange blows with their swords, though either had managed to break through the other's guard, yet, whilst aiming for the pressure points taught in their style with their swords, though with the nature of both their swords, one containing the former Demon King, and the other blessed by the eight-head snake, even a minor injury could easily be fatal, never mind hitting the weak points of the human body with said weapon. Feeling his legs stiffen, he glanced down in shock. Several dark green snakes had tightly wrapped themselves around his legs, with another wrapping around his sword-carrying arm. "I have you now, Naruto-kun." "Fuck. Take this, you snake bastard." Flaring his chakra with as much force as he dare aloud, he proceeded to destroy Orochimaru's approaching snakes from his hidden snake hand jutsu as well as the ones wrapping around him, though the chakra expenditure had left him low, and he was no longer able to maintain his own mass hidden snake hand jutsu. Panting heavily, his slitted blue eyes flecked with red bored into Orochimaru's slitted yellow ones. "Very good, Naruto-kun. I'm impressed to be able to counter my snake hands so effectively, and fight me rather well at the same time." "Thanks. But I'm here to kill you, so save the damn compliments," growled Naruto angrily in response, switching his grip and holding it with both hands. "This probably our last chance. Try not to mess this up," Naruto muttered the fox to his host, via their mental link, raising his sword and swinging heavily downward, sending with full emotions the order to the sword kill. Unfortunately, Orochimaru parried the blade slightly and let it slide to the side. He stepped forward. "This came a little too early for you, boy." Shit! Orochimaru slashed Naruto diagonally across the chest. Blood gushed from the wound. Before he could step back, Naruto slashed at Orochimaru upwards, cutting him deeply across the top of his chest and shoulder. Corrode, poison, obliterate Sounga, were Naruto's desperate thoughts to the demonic sword. When sie sind, also hartnäckiges über es dann verbindet Kitsune Hanyu, whispered a voice in Naruto's head. They were both knocked back by each other's attacks, their blood flooding the air and splattering across the ground. Both of their hidden snake techniques vanished. They skidded back. Orochimaru was breathing heavily, holding his injured shoulder. Sounga chakra had burned his flesh badly, and he had trouble keeping a scream of agony from erupting out of his mouth. A slither of black chakra crept unnoticed into Orochimaru's body. Naruto was on one knee, breathing heavily, using his sword as a support. Kyuubi had stopped any more blood from coming out, but it still hurt like hell. Fuck you, bastard, I'm gonna kill you, said Naruto, forcing himself up and charging, but suddenly his world became hazy and he fell to his knees as he buckled under his own weight. Haha, looks like even a demon host cannot withstand poison, laughed Orochimaru, straightening slightly. On the blade? Asked Naruto through gritted teeth. The poison was quickly spreading, his limbs felt cold and his eyes were quickly becoming hazy. That correct, Naruto-kun, you're far better than expected, and you can fight me as an equal, if only for a short time. In the end, though, I'm the superior. Don't worry, I'll send Anko to see you on the other side soon enough, haha. I won't die, you pedophile snake fetish bastard, grunted Naruto. Farewell, fellow snake, said Orochimaru, charging forward, reaching for a thrust. I can't die here. Naruto closed his eyes. He heard a sound of steel connecting, but he felt nothing. Opening his eyes, he saw his sensei and lover Anko Mitarashi blocking Orochimaru's sword with a hidden sleeve snake summoning. It had caught the blade in its mouth and held it firmly in place. Anko-chan, muttered Naruto blearily, struggling to keep his eyes open. You did great, Naruto-chan. I'll finish things here, said Anko, glaring determinedly at her former sensei, her own purple chakra surging around her body, and though it gave off a feeling of malice, it lacked the perverted feel of Orochimaru's chakra. Anko-chan, it's been a long time, hasn't it? How have you been since I tossed you aside here in Konoha like the garbage you are? Asked Orochimaru, obviously taunting his former pupil. Save the pleasantries, shitstain. What the hell are you doing here in Konoha? Orochimaru smiled faintly, wrenching his sword away from Anko and depositing it back down his throat. Now, Anko-chan, I don't believe I should tell you that. After all, you won't keep a secret like that to yourself, would you? Replied Orochimaru in a patronizing tone, as though speaking to a child. Anko's eyes tightened slightly, but she didn't make a move. Not yet. Naruto, forcing himself to feet, using his demon sword to keep himself up, said in a strained voice. Anko-chan is here in order to obtain Sasuke's Sharingan eyes. He most likely intends to lure the arrogant Uchiha by giving him one of those cursed seals. Taking a deep breath, he stood up straight and sheathed his demonic sword, Sounga. However, though he showed his usual indifference upon his handsome, somewhat feral features, the strain of the injury on his chest and the poison in his veins was evident by his body. His limbs were shaking with the strain of simply standing, and sweat was glistening off his body. I'm sorry, Kit, but this is all I can do right now with the seal in its current condition. I can't do much more about the poison, or that cut you won't last much longer, Kit. Be careful, said Kyuubi, obviously angry that he was helpless to assist his host. Don't worry, Baka Fox, Anko's here. We'll manage somehow, relied Naruto, forcing chakra through his body. I should be able to fight for a little while. Anko was giving her former sensei a taste of her killer intent. With one hand she drew a kunai. She placed her right hand into her hip pouch, but instead of drawing a weapon, Anko began performing a series of seals, using her pouch to hide her hand movements. Oh, young Naruto-kun still wishes to fight. The stamina of a Jinchuriki is quite splendid, isn't it? Anko-chan observed Orochimaru, watching Naruto out of the corner of his eye. Orochimaru, Naruto won't be helping me. I'll end your life right now, growled Anko, not taking her eyes from Orochimaru for even a second. I'll probably only have a 5% chance of pulling this off. Please, Kami, let this work. Oh, let's see what you can do, smiled Orochimaru, brushing him hand across his wound. His hand glowed white for a moment, and the blood stopped flowing from his shoulder. Hidden snake style, binding condas, announced Anko quickly, making the final seal for her technique, Torai, and 4 large anacondas burst around Orochimaru's limbs, tightly binding his arms and legs, keeping his body firmly in place. This is it, yelled Anko, striking Orochimaru in the chest, releasing a sliver of chakra through his vital points. Naruto and Orochimaru's eyes both widened in shock. That's Dimak, the death touch, gasped Naruto softly. You bitch, gasped Orochimaru, blood spraying out his mouth. Slumping forward, his body became still. That's for making my life hell, bastard, said Anko. Her hands clenched. That's what you get for leaving me behind. She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her eyes. I really hate you. We were like father and daughter once. Why the fuck did you leave me behind? Slamming both her hands onto the ground in frustration. Naruto watched his soulmate cry, his hands so tightly clenched that he was drawing blood. Deep down she still cared for Orochimaru, I think, but the loneliness of being thrown aside, it's been your only goal all these years, to get him back. Anko-chan, you did the right thing, now you can live your own life, thought Naruto quietly to himself. Because you were of no further use to me, Anko-chan, said a voice behind Anko, shocking both the Jounin and Genin snake users. Naruto's eyes snapped back to where Orochimaru had supposedly died. In the place of Orochimaru was a large, thick black snake, bound in Anko's technique, a dead snake. Amazing, really, what a replacement with a snake summoning, hinged and then replaced with me at the last second can do, observed Orochimaru, looking down at Anko, who glared hatefully back. Her eyes were still tear-stained. If you excuse me, I didn't come here to play with you, Anko-chan, or you, Naruto-kun, so I'll have to get going. Unfortunately, I've missed my opportunity. Never mind, it was only my most convenient plan. I have many more solid ways of gaining the Sharingan, but it can't be avoided. My presence has been detected. Let's play again when we have the time. I'll kill you both if choose to stand in my way, laughed Orochimaru, vanishing in a puff of smoke. A shadow clone? He must have left as soon as he made the switch, muttered Naruto angrily. I'll definitely get him. Next time I'll kill him, muttered Anko. Wiping the tears from her eyes, she half turned when she felt Naruto wrap his arms around her slim frame and said in a quiet voice, we'll definitely kill him next time, Anko-chan. Till then, let's continue our lives together. Naruto-chan, muttered Anko, feeling secure again with Naruto wrapped around her. She heard him mutter something inaudible, and he loosened his grip and fell to the side, unconscious. Anko span round, keeping her emotions in check. She gave him a once-over. He looked terrible. His face was pale and sweating, and he had a huge gash across his chest that would definitely scar. Naruto-chan, don't worry, I'll get help. Reaching into her pocket, she pulled out a small communicator, switching it on with a flick of her finger. Inferno Squad 7, urgent report. Orochimaru spotted in Sector 9, 3 in the Forest of Death. Shinobi down. Send a med squad immediately, spoke Anko into the comm, keeping her voice steady, resisting the urge to hold her lover in her arms and cry. After a few moments of static, there was a reply. We know us, Squad 7 reads you loud and clear. We'll deploy ANBU and MED squads immediately. Hold your current position, was the reply from a deep-sounding voice. Understood. She switched off the comm and knelt beside Naruto. Leaning forward, she gave him a small kiss on the cheek. Thank you for being there, Naruto, she said quietly, brushing back a strand of his golden locks. Quietly she waited, though certainly not patiently, waiting for the MED squad to arrive and the ANBU to search the nearby area. Now they had a good idea of the Sanin's general location. The dark, shocking feeling continued to surround her. The thoughts of dying a horrific death, fear, pain, the inevitability of it, the job of a shinobi was becoming increasingly real to her. And Haruno Sakura didn't like it. It had been 4 hours since their dark, viscous teammate Uzumaki Naruto had scampered off for unknown reasons. Not that she cared. Naruto was evil, he had to be. He was so mean, and he acted like he was better than her and Sasuke. It was outrageous. Breaking away from her unpleasant thoughts, she glanced towards the sole target of her affections. Uchiha Sasuke, the last surviving member of the noble Uchiha clan, once renowned for its wealth, battle skills, and their powerful bloodline, the Sharingan, which Konoha still to this day proclaims as their strongest Jujutsu, power, even though the clan consisted of only Sasuke and one traitor, Rouge Nin. Sasuke sat there quietly gazing into the small campfire, his face expressionless, his onyx-colored eyes a mystery, his black hair streaming around his pretty boy features. Sakura resisted the urge to glomp the last Uchiha. Though lacking in common sense, she knew it was not the time for her to try to court Sasuke and get him to admit his undying love for her. Which he obviously felt. He was merely playing hard to get, right? Right. Trying to force herself to dispel her unease of being in this horrible place, swallowing the lump in her throat as Sasuke-kun. Sakura, we're leaving, said Sasuke, suddenly standing up. But didn't Naruto say to stay here? Who are you gonna trust? Me and Uchiha, insert heavenly music here, or that dope, his just being a wuss. We're gonna get another scroll and pass this exam instead of wasting my time here, responded Sasuke with his usual haughty tone, putting out the fire and preparing his gear. Sakura, of course, offered no resistance to the will of the object of her affections. She was after all a loyal fangirl through and through, regardless to the danger that her rash Uchiha led them into. Well, at least Sasuke will save me. But hopefully Naruto comes back soon, thought Sakura to herself, gathering up her own supplies, preparing to leave. Moments later they both leapt into the trees, heading quickly towards the tower. Hopefully they'd run into some shinobi and take their scroll. Uzumaki, I'm not gonna lose to you this time. I'll be the one that passes us, thought Sasuke as he leapt through the tree limbs, the dark leaves scattering around him as the wind whistled by. Elsewhere in the forest. Deep within the A-rank section of the Forest of Death sat in a circle around a small, but warm fire, 6 young shinobi. They were all dressed in near identical clothing which consisted of a black woolen hat with their metal headband, height, stitched onto the front, black bodysuit, black trousers, jounin style, over that went a gray sleeveless chunin style jacket. They each carried a katana strapped to their back and a rucksack over that. They were 2 genin teams from the village hidden in the stone. Due to an uneasy truce between the 2 villages, stone shinobi were now allowed to attend the chunin exams when hosted in Konoha. However, the Earth Shadow had not sent them to raise their rank. No, they had been sent to acquire certain aspects of Konoha's populace that they constantly held over the other villages' heads, this being Konoha's abundant collection of bloodline limits, a series of pro-battle mutations that occur within a clan, passed down generation after generation. The most famous of these being the eye-powered bloodlines, Dijitsu. The 2 greatest Dijitsu-wielding families were the Hyuga and the Uchihas, each with their own respective styles and powers. The Hyuga's mutation was called the Byakugan, the appearance of which makes them look blind due to their white eyes, which is ironic in itself as they are also known as the all-seeing eye with the ability to see all chakra that surrounds them in the world. This includes the human chakra coil system. Along with 360-degree range of sight, it is almost impossible to sneak up on them and even harder to hit a skilled Hyuga. Combining this with their chakra sealing taijutsu gives them a large advantage against most opponents. The second clan is the Uchihas, whose eye power is known as the Sharingan, pinwheel eye. Unlike the Hyuga, it does not appear in all full-blood Uchihas. Perhaps only 1 in 5 will receive the pinwheel eyes. They are named as such as when in its fully developed state, the pupil is replaced by 3 black tomos which resemble a pinwheel. The color of the eyes change as well. Uchihas typically have coal-colored eyes, but when using the Sharingan it turns a vibrant blood red. Unlike the Hyugas, the Sharingan has 3 official levels. Each level is represented by a tomo in each eye. The Sharingan can see chakra around them in the form of colors. However, they cannot see the chakra coils like the Hyuga or the 360 vision. However, the Sharingan allows the user to see movements in slow motion and duplicate any techniques it sees. The first tomo allows the Uchiha to see through and copy taijutsu, the second tomo does the same for ninjutsu, and the third tomo allows for the user to see through and copy illusionary techniques, genjutsu. Only in this fully developed state is it considered a true rival to the Byakugan. Their taijutsu revolved on quick evasions and high-speed combos directed towards critical areas. The style was only efficient when the Sharingan is activated. The goal of the 2 teams was to capture the strongest Hyuga of this generation, Hyuga Niji, and the heiress of the Hyuga line, Hyuga Hinata, and bring them back for breeding purposes. The Uchiha had also been added to their list as they had recently discovered that Uchiha Sasuke was to be entered in this bi-yearly Chunin exam. The foolish council had bragged about the last loyal Uchiha soon becoming a Chunin of Konoha.